Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. WeatherBrains episode 848 for April the 18th, 2022. This is James, and this is the pre-show. It's the magical time of the program where we do three things. We share boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and from time to time we say outrageous things. Going to be a very interesting show tonight. We're going to get into this tornado emergency talk that's been the buzz on weather Twitter and going around the horn in the private sector and within the weather service. And, it's a good, healthy conversation. And again, all this talk, it's not to criticize anybody or anything or any person. It's just to try and see if we're moving in a bad direction. So it's very interesting. It means a lot to me tonight. So looking forward to the discussion we're going to have, but hopefully you've had a good day today on April 18th, and it's time to bring in our guests. See if we can find, I think Neil might be in a position where he does not have internet access. And I hate that because I wanted him to be on the show tonight, but hopefully he will. And I know that Kim is out. She's got some health issues with one of her children, which is always, you just say, for those of us that have, raised kids, health issues with your children, that's the one thing you don't want. You'd rather me to have a health issue than one of the kids, but I think she's out tonight, but I think everybody else is in, so this should be a fairly good discussion here. So let's hit the send button and see if we can get everybody online. Things are calming down here in the weather world where I am. We've had severe weather pretty consistently now for the past, 4, 5, 6 weeks, like once a week, but the death ridge seems to be setting in. I don't think it's the permanent death ridge for the summer, but it's going to set in, which is going to knock out the severe weather for where we are, the southern U.S. over the next couple of weeks, probably for the rest of April. But May can be problematic. We can certainly have our share of tornadoes here. We had a really, really violent EF4, an F4, May 27th, almost to June in 1973, that killed 5 people in a town called Brent. It hit the radar site, the old National Weather Service WSR 57 near Centerville and Brent. So we have certainly had our share of tornadoes here late in the season. But let's see if we can find some folks to get on here and talk about our topic for tonight. Here's Mr. Bill Murray in the saddle.
James?
In the saddle.
In the saddle again. Is that one of the songs JB used to sing?
I still got some of those songs in here. I think. Actually, I don't. I changed soundboards, and a lot of the old JB songs are not in there anymore. I still got the Super Outbreak Lady.
Oh yeah,
we got some criticism from an elderly lady in the middle of the night on the phone.
Tell us about that, JB.
I'm afraid I might get tracked down.
Oh. Oh, that's awesome.
Bob Ferry on that one.
Yeah.
He was our MIC in Birmingham.
Who ever heard of a band named Who? Who? They jump all over the stage and swallow the microphone. Who is who? Who is who?
It's after one of the Super Bowl halftime shows. That was an absolute classic. This might be the greatest. This has got to be the greatest JB Elliott one ever. JB, did you see this one today? Indian girls plow fields naked in attempt to bring rain.
No, I didn't see it.
Now, you've never done this, have you, during a drought?
Yes.
That was pretty quick with that no, James, on there. I don't know. That's a little suspect.
Oh man. The rat hole song in a while.
Rat hole. Rat hole. Boarded report. some rat holes. The weekly mind-breaking rat hole. Totally off-topic rat hole.
This whole
Does that
show is
mean we're not going down enough rat holes, or we've just become one large one?
This whole show is a rat hole. I think that's the situation there. Oh,
Here
yeah.
comes Chance. Yay, we have a show. We would have a show no matter what. But
Oh, yeah.
the show we advertise.
Turning it off and on again, off and on again, off and on again.
Haven't played that one in a long time.
Now, was that a real song, or was that a song one of our listeners just made?
No, one of our listeners recorded that and sent it to us, I think. So
Yeah,
they are
that's
the greatest in
brilliant.
the
I use
world.
that all the time.
You know, in fact, I think it was Dr. John that always had to reboot. In fact, I sent him a gift in the mail a couple of weeks ago. I ran into Bart Starr's wife, Cherry Starr. And, you know, John Scala is one of the biggest Bart Starr Green Bay Packer fans in the world. And I told Cherry, I said, you know, Cherry, you got a big fan up in Pennsylvania, and he absolutely loves you and Bart. And she went out to her car and got this hat, probably John could probably sell this thing on eBay for big money. And she said, give this to him. So I sent it to him, and he sent a note back, and he was ecstatic over getting that hat, that Bart Starr hat. So we missed Dr. John. He was a good one.
Is that a Kiss album back there in your?
Yeah, man.
Oh my goodness! There you go.
Is that Destroyer?
This is
Rock and roll.
rock and roll over.
That's right, Destroyer. They're on the rocks, all side by side. That's right.
I think
Yeah,
I snuck
no.
that one in my house in the 8th grade.
We have
I still have a
Unmasked.
Oh, nice. I still have a Kiss concert shirt in my closet, unworn,
Wow.
still folded.
That's right.
Now,
My very
when
first.
I was gonna say, when our news anchor Dave Baird retired, he came over and said, "You want these?" And I said, "Yeah." They were in his desk over there in the newsroom. And what
They've been there
he
since
was doing?
1979.
Yeah, with Kiss albums, but so I've got Kiss vinyl right here. I mean, see, all the other weather shows don't have people with Kiss vinyl in their collection back here. I mean, that little cubby back there is critical. I mean, we've got we got bananas, and we've got
Well, those recent, there's still recent bananas, I guess. Yeah, Reese's Pieces.
Stash. And welcome to our television audience. I try and do this stuff before the TV people get on here, but we just joined the television side. So welcome to you. And we're glad you're here. And I heard that we got to do closed captioning for the television side. We've got to figure out a way to do that, but that's a problem for the TV folks here to figure out. So, all right, let's get this thing started. Rick Smith, are you good? I see Rick here. We know that Kim is out. Yeah, Rick is good. All right.
I'm good.
Good. Because we got to have you here with us in this discussion. So here we go in the right soundboard up. Here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
WeatherBrains is brought to you by Midland Weather Radio. Every home, school, and business should have a NOAA Weather Radio, the official voice of the National Weather Service. And the AMS Weather Band.
Join the American Meteorological Society by becoming a member of the band. The AMS Weather Band is a global community of weather enthusiasts dedicated to learning and sharing their love of science. Visit amsweatherband.org to learn more and join the band today.
Hey, WeatherBrains, episode number 848 for the 18th of April, 2022. This is the weekly show all about weather, the world's oldest, longest running podcast in the entire universe. You know, that show last week got more positive feedback, Troy Kimball, than anyone we've done in a while. I'm glad that it was a hard show, but it was a good show.
It was hearing a lot of feedback, and it was an interesting one, even from our perspective, just to sit back and listen to everyone speaking. Yeah.
I was shocked at some of the things I heard from people I've
Yeah.
known a long time that I
Yeah.
didn't know. And
Yep.
so if you missed it, you might want to go back and listen to 847 involving women in meteorology and the harassment that they have to deal with, sexual harassment that's
Yeah.
just absolutely brutal. But it was a
Yeah.
hard conversation. So Troy, you hit 100 down there yet?
No 100. Yeah, actually, we only hit 70, about 79 today, I guess, at Camp Mabry, and that was below the guidance. I thought we'd get up to 82 today, but we got a little bit. I can thank Chance for this because this came in from the north, so it kind of slipped in, kind of backdoored its way into South Central Texas, but we managed to be a little cooler. Now, what I understand is we'll pay for that in the coming days down here with highs above 90 by the weekend and lots of humidity. And if anyone has any spare rain, I'm willing to talk to you, Chance, about that. Anyone has any spare rain, we could certainly use it around here. It has been so dry. What's so funny about here, James, in Austin, is you get a 20 or 30% chance of rain, 3-inch hail, and maybe a 1/4 inch of rain, or you don't get anything. That's what we've seen lately. You get tornadoes, the roof blows off the house, down the street, they get no rain, and they watch the tornado move by. It's just either feast or famine around Austin lately.
And so it goes. And
Yep.
It's that time of the year. So Rick, you're up Interstate 35. Can you send Troy some help?
No, I just typed in the chat, welcome to our world. That's tell everybody this time of year, if you're praying for rain or wanting rain, it doesn't come by itself, this
Well,
time.
it worries me that Rick kind of stalled on that one because there are a lot of different kind of help that I could use.
Well, I'm going with the I'm trying to be nice. So
okay, rain. I won't.
There's all kinds of help I can use. But no, I wish we had some. It's been dry. We had a chance of seeing more moisture up there than we have, but I don't know. We're in kind of an unsettled pattern this week. We got thunderstorm chances around every day, and maybe a better chance this weekend or something. So we'll see. But like I said, this time of year, you gotta take the frozen rain and the swirling rain and the blowing rain and the flowing rain. All if you're going to get rain, you're going to get other stuff too.
The big old fat rain, according to Forrest Gump. Or was it fat rain? Yeah. Big old fat rain. So Jen, how you doing on rain where you are? It's kind of cold up there, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it was snow on the daffodils this morning. Big fat snowflakes and coated the ground, and then by about 4 o'clock it was all gone. So we're moving in the right direction later in the week. I'm not a fan of today's weather, but I will be by the time we hit Friday. Saturday highs in the 70s. We could even see 80 up here. So a couple of seasons in 1 week, which is typical for April in Ohio. So
that's it. So I was looking our down here, our surplus for the year is almost 9 inches. We have been very wet this spring and very active. And the ridge is setting up here. I don't think it's the final ridge, the summer ridge, but it's going to shut down our severe weather machine for probably the rest of April, which works for me. I'm kind of tired, Bill Murray, of dealing with severe weather every Wednesday. It's been on Wednesdays here. So it's a good thing. But bringing in our guest, Bill, let's get this party on the road. I'm very anxious to get into this tonight.
Yeah, James, one of our listeners pointed out that we needed to have Chance Hayes, the WCM at the National Weather Service in Wichita, on because of the incredible job he does in his storm spotter training. So I thought tonight we'd actually let him treat us to just some of the highlights of what he does and how he does it and learn from him. But Chance, we're glad to have you on the show tonight. I hear you had a little dental work today. I hope that's not acting up and you're feeling okay.
Yeah, actually, I'm doing pretty good. And the drugs they gave me aren't illegal, so we're okay from that standpoint. For some reason, my first implant decided it didn't want to hold and worked its way out. So I made the decision to go for my second one. So we'll see what happens. It was a little rougher today, but we'll make it. I'm doing just fine.
Good.
Well, I had my physical this morning. You go in there, we're getting to the age now where you think, they could tell you something bad at one of these deals. So I was kind of like, I better get prepared for that. Well, then this medical student comes in and he's all, you can tell he's really enjoying his job, asking me lots of questions. He's like, "Do you have any swelling in your feet?" Nah. Doctor comes in, he goes, "Let me see your legs." He goes, "You got all kind of swelling." He said, you can't take their word for it.
Yeah,
No,
we're
I
not going to
guess
tell them what they want to hear.
Yeah, so I thought I was just going to get by with the intern or the resident this morning and get a quick bill of health and get out of there. But no, I got some more tests and some more fun coming before it was over with. So now, Chance, we always like to know, since we haven't had you on the show before, tell us how you got into weather. What was the big defining moment, if there was one, and fill us in.
I'll be quite honest with you. Weather wasn't my first passion. Honestly, my first passion was to be a dentist. And
there you go.
Wow. Yeah.
That's
so
the show.
Can you do your own dental work like today? That'd be coming handy.
No, remember, I've lost a tooth, so that ought to tell you something right there.
Yeah.
So dentistry went by the wayside. I loved playing sports in high school. I was fortunate enough to play a little bit of college baseball, and my university, or the college I went to, is Rose State College here in Midwest City. So it's just north of the runways at Tinker Air Force Base.
Yeah.
So then my backup plan after a dentist was become a jet pilot. Well, that didn't work out either. And so since I found myself always staring up at the skies and the clouds and the jets, I was like, meteorology might be interesting. And so then I pulled out the huge book from the University of Oklahoma, and I flipped through every single page at all the degrees. And there was only one that stood out, and that was meteorology. And I was like, you know what? I could be a TV weather guy someday. And I could be sitting down at the dinner table and everybody say, "Hey, there's that weather guy, Chance Hayes." Well, the TV route didn't work out because back in those days, I had a worse accent than what I have now. And so it was a little bit more difficult to get in. And in fact, one of the local meteorologists said, "Be careful, alligators wear suits." And I found that to be the case. And so I've filled out my old 171 for the federal government, and they sent me to Kentucky. So I fit right in out there with those folks. And then after that, let me see, I was there for 2 years. I transferred into Wichita, Kansas to get a little bit closer to home, which is God's country there in Oklahoma. So I've been there since 1995. So in fact, I think I'm the longest tenured person in my office now.
Well, Chance, Rick and I were just talking in the chat there. I thought you had the perfect name. It's almost a made-up name for TV weather. You would have been perfect.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it was fate. I mean, because if I was going to be a girl, my name was going to be Hope. So I turned out to be a boy. So my name was Chance. And then I don't think my parents actually knew how to spell the last name, or not my parents, but my relatives, because I think it was actually Hays. And for some reason, they wanted to be a little bit more dignified and added an E in there. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, that adds value. It's not a bad thing, Chance. Now, and on your Twitter, feed, you at the top, you have your slogan there. Means a lot to me, because I think you're dead on when you say that. So you remember what's up there?
The skies are screened to a movie that never ends.
That's right. That's exactly right. It's just
somehow out of the blue, I felt I needed to come up with a quote, and that's what came up. And for somebody that tries to educate people as much as I possibly can, I just thought that was fitting.
Well, that's outstanding. So, we're glad you're here tonight, and we want to spend some time, learning, and I know our audience is going to really enjoy, paying attention to what you got to say tonight. Now, of course, it's kind of a visual thing, so we'll have to do a lot of describing for our audio listeners, because a large percentage of them do listen for sure. But those that are on the television or the YouTube, or maybe even the ones that are listening to the podcast, can go back and watch the recorded version, because I think you're going to learn some really cool things. So I know our host will let you share your screen here. And then we're going to monitor for some questions. So if any of our listeners out there that are listening live have questions, put them in your channels, and we're going to we're going to stop you from time to time, Chance, and ask you some questions.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, I'll do my best. I'm glad I got Rick and I can see Jen there as well. I appreciate hearing Jen's voice on the radio down here on occasion. So
Hi,
if I get
Chance.
stumped, hopefully you all can help me out, because I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not the expert. I'm just a person that loves meteorology, tries to educate as much as I can. So I'm not too ashamed to ask for help. That's for sure.
Well,
So are we ready to get rocking and rolling?
Let's rock and roll. We'll just make this a
okay. Well,
for the next
first of all,
45 minutes or so.
Bill, Rick can attest to this. I'm extremely long-winded. I'm from Oklahoma, so I talk a little bit slower. So it's going to be hard to get as much information as I can in 45 minutes, but I'm going to try to do my darndest. The folks
we've been known to go till 10 or 11 o'clock, Chance. So there's no harm in that.
Well, we don't need to do that. But the folks that are listening, I would encourage them to come back later and view the podcast online, just to get a better idea of some of the things that I'm actually going to be depicting in this presentation, because there's going to be a ton of radar imagery and also a ton of actual images of the storm and how they correlate. So it's going to be a little bit difficult. I'm going to do my darndest to do that. But I encourage folks to come into the podcast afterwards. One thing I did need to set the record straight: there is no award-winning spotter training. So you're setting me up for failure there. There's 122 Weather Service offices out there, and each National Weather Service gives an award-winning presentation. So I just want you all to know that. So
well, that's my fault for saying that. But
yes,
we're giving you the Steve Holmes Award for that one, because our listener,
okay,
Steve Holmes, decided that you were award-winning, and in his word, he says Chance injects his folksy personality into the presentation. It's like having weather explained by Mark Twain or Will Rogers. That's what Steve Holmes said about you.
I don't know about that, but I'll do my darndest, to be honest with you. I'll kind of go ahead and just get started, so we're not here all night long. Several years ago, we decided to kind of rename spotter training. We wanted to get away from spotter training because we found that people were not coming into our presentations because they didn't want to, quote unquote, become spotters. So what we've done is we've just come back and we've retitled it as Storm Fury on the Plains. It's a weather identification and safety presentation, because the way that I look at this training, it's open for everybody, the general public. And the more people that we can educate, the safer that we are all going to be. Now, I do want to preface this presentation to let you know this is geared more towards the plain states. You go east of the Mississippi, it's a whole different ballgame. I can attest to that. As I met James, about 12 years ago, after the April 27th event, when I was part of that assessment team. And I was just in awe that there wasn't a lot more fatalities, a lot more injuries, because everything, for the most part, east of Mississippi, and especially down there in Alabama, everything was hidden. You couldn't see much. And so here in the plains, we do have that luxury to be able to see these storms from a distance. So most of everything that I'm going to be discussing is going to be coming from the plains. But like I said, east of Mississippi, whole different ballgame, different types of tornadoes. James, you got something you want to add there?
No, you're right. It's all weather, but it's apples and oranges. We were rain wrapped QLCS nighttime events where you got a little visibility, more LP storms there. So yeah, you're right. It's a much more visual ability in the plains.
Though what's interesting though is we are starting to see a lot more QLCS type tornadoes here in the plains as well. So I mean, the education that we're learning from the researchers and the chasers is just invaluable to help us keep folks safe. So with that, we'll go ahead and just get started with Storm Fury on the plains here. As pretty as pictures are, we see pictures, we see videos all the time. What folks need to understand is that each one of those pictures tells a complete story. It gives an individual an opportunity to understand what's happening in the atmosphere, what's happening with that storm, and the potential that that storm may have. And then they can take that information and they can relay it. We love Twitter because they have the ability the tweet to a state like OK Weather or KS Weather or ALWX is actually what it would be. It'd be the 2-letter identifier for the state and then WX for weather with the pound in the front. And that gives every single one of us an opportunity to see what the individuals in the field are actually observing. And I can't tell you how groundbreaking that has been for us in the National Weather Service, as well as I'm quite sure for you in the broadcast industry, because those pictures are, like we've always said, worth 1,000 words. And it helps basically take the whole scenario and mesh it together for us. So each picture does tell a story. So what Storm Fury on the Plains is really about? Well, it's about teaching individuals all the different tools that are available to them and how to utilize them, and to try and get an understanding of exactly what they are seeing. And I'll be the first one to tell you, there's going to be times that even the most knowledgeable chasers, they're, they get bumfuzzled out there. They have no clue what they're seeing. But what I always tell my folks, sit there and watch it, see how it evolves, and then eventually you're going to be able to pick out the main features that we like to know about. And that's also going to tell them the potential strength of the storm and the hazards that they may get. We're also wanting to let folks know what they may be driving into. That's why I said I open this up to the public, because I want the public to understand what's ahead of them on the roadway if they're traveling, and whether or not they should continue to drive, pull off to the side of the road, wait it out, or even go into an area of business along the roadway. I drive back up into Kansas all the time from Oklahoma. I'm fortunate. I like to gamble. So if I see storms ahead of me, what do? I pull off at one of the local casinos, go in there, gamble a while, lose my money, and then go on to my destination. But I want folks to stay out of harm's way. And so that's why when we give this presentation, we try and cater this presentation not only to the storm spotters that are so valuable to us, but also to the general public that's going to be traveling in and around the area. So that's what Storm Fury is. And it's also technology and people working together to save lives. People just like my neighbor, they can provide real-time observations and weather reports. The picture there on the left from Jim Reed, I want to say that was about 20 years ago up in Pretty Prairie, Kansas. One of the most striking images that I've ever seen from a tornado, with a law enforcement officer right there staring that tornado in the face and reporting that into dispatch, and that immediately getting back to us there at the National Weather Service, which you can see our operations area there on the right. It's not quite as extensive as what Rick and the folks down in Norman have with their situational awareness board, but it does the job. We basically feel that if we don't know what is happening in any particular area, we can't serve the public as best as we possibly can. So we're constantly striving to find out what is happening. And I'll be honest with you, long time ago, early in my career, there may be times, they say, well, maybe we shouldn't call into that area to see what's happening because we don't want to issue the warnings. That's not the case anymore. We want to know what's happening so that we can get all the information in the public's hands so they can make informed decisions. So we're constantly striving to get that information, and we utilize it in our warning decisions. Spotters are important because at our office we utilize what we call a 2 out of 3 methodology when we're issuing our warnings. We look at the radar, we look at the environment, we listen to the spotters or the public, and anytime 2 of those 3 points towards a hazard or a potential hazard, we pull the trigger on a warning regardless. We don't ask questions. But there are times where it only takes 1. And generally that's on 2 different occasions. Make that 3. 1, we got a debris ball signature on radar. 2, we got a massive hail core. But 3, if the radar isn't suggesting it, the environment, is somewhat conducive, but that spotter comes back and it's somebody that we know and we trust, we'll pull the trigger based solely on their report. The tornado that hit south of Lawrence and hit outside of Lawrence, I think it was Linwood, I think it was at EF4 a few years ago, completely wrapped in rain. You couldn't see it. It looked like a huge rain shaft, but the reports were coming in. The radar had that tornado rain wrap kind of in an odd location. But without those reports to coincide with the radar imagery that they were seeing, maybe we wouldn't have got as early a lead time on that. We're getting satellite data every 1 minute, and we're getting real-time observations constantly, wind, temperature, moisture, so on and so forth. But like I said, those reports come right into the National Weather Service, put it into our warning decision process. And, one of the things I was told several years ago, and I think it was from some of my broadcast partners here, it's that report of hazardous weather and the warning and statements that actually gets people to act. And I think I can understand that, because when we issue a warning, this is Doppler radar indicated, I don't think that really packs the punch that a warning or a statement that says a train spotter, law enforcement, amateur radio, fire department, storm chaser saw this, reported this, because people then, they understand, well, somebody's actually there, somebody's actually seen it, so it must be real. Doppler radar indicated is a bunch of computers running a bunch of algorithms. It might be there, it might not be. But once we have that confirmed report, I think that speaks volumes, and I think people will act quicker based on that information. That's why with the National Weather Service and also some of our private partners go out and provide this training, because our ultimate goal is the same. I view our area here in Wichita as a weather enterprise, because we're all working together. We're a great team. We've got AccuWeather here locally. We've got our broadcast media. We have radio stations that send out chasers, and you got the Weather Service. And I see us all working together harmoniously for one goal in mind. And we're not out there to cut each other off or to scoop the information. We all want the information because we have the same goal in mind. Here's a shot from the Pleasant Hill office outside of Kansas City on the left, working severe weather event. Those that are familiar, there are some computer screens up there, and it's pretty evident. You got gate-to-gate rotation. You got 3 forecasters there looking over the event, providing information. The screen on the right could be your aunt, your uncle, your mother, your father, looking out the window, seeing a squall line moving right at you. And then they could take a quick picture of that, tweet it out. So now with the National Weather Service, we got the radar imagery. We got the imagery of the actual storm as it's moving in. So we got a better picture of what's going on in that area and what the potential may be. And like I said earlier, it definitely adds credibility to the warnings. And that's where our broadcast partners come into play, because we can take that information. It's confirmed. You can go on the air, be it on television, be it on radio. You can break in live on weather radio even, to give that information, get people's attention, and get them to act. And like I said, folks are going to act. And that's why the spotters are so important. And that's why all of us go out there. Because I'm going to give you go right ahead.
Hey, sorry to interrupt, but we are
no,
taking
go ahead.
some
You may
questions.
go back.
And I've got a good one here. I don't know where you're going next, but I think we're kind of in a good spot for this. And we're not going to get into what happens somewhere else on another day late last week right now. But this question from Twitter: should there be more stringent rules or guidelines or certifications for people who are storm spotters? How would that be implemented? I know, we're pretty open with who we allow to be storm spotters because we need all the reports we can get. What are your thoughts on that? Is there any need to tighten that up in any way or do certifications or anything more stringent?
We tried that several years ago, Rick. We tried to do certified storm spotter training, and it just became a nightmare to try and database that and to track that information. It's very difficult, and I know the Spotter Network tries to do that as well. And it's a tough chore to tackle. Honestly, I'm like you. Every bit of information that I can get, I'm going to take, regardless if they're certified or not. Then it's up to us as meteorologists to interpret what we are seeing and then try and ascertain, is what the spotter reporting into us a valid report based on what we are seeing. But I think the certification process, in my eyes, it just being extremely difficult to maintain that type of database.
Yeah, I agree. And just my 2 cents, I don't think any level of certification is going to prevent a human being from making a mistake. And
Right.
We'll get into it later, maybe with that specific event, but I think most spotters are very well intentioned and trying to do their best. And there's, like I think you mentioned it earlier, there's trained meteorologists, PhD, storm spotters, chasers who do this every year, and every year people see something that makes them go, "What the heck was that?" So it doesn't.
Oh, yeah.
No amount of certification. You can take 1,000 storm spotter training classes. You're still not going to see everything, know it all, or be perfect. So anyway, all right. Thanks, Chad.
Absolutely.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
I'll
No
let
problem.
you know if I get any more.
Okay, no problem at all. Just kind of give folks an idea, of what we see versus what you see. Here's a supercell that's getting ready to move into the Wichita metropolitan area. We did have a tornado warning on it. There was a verified tornado. We see the supercell, we see the hook, we see the strong inflow notch, we see the hail core. That's what we see. But the spotter actually has the ability to see the mesocyclone, see the rain completely wrapping around that mesocyclone, being a rain wrap storm. We know it was a tornado because of the damage on the backside of it. You can see the striations of the updraft. So when we take our radar image with the image from Travis here, it just helps paint that perfect picture for us. So, and this may be from one of your presentations, Rick, if I'm not mistaken. I've snagged a few things from you over the years. Where prepare and observe. And everybody needs to basically keep this in the back of their mind if they're spotting or even if they're traveling. To be aware, you need to know what is in the forecast. I encourage every single person that attends my presentations to download local weather media app. I think it's invaluable. It gives them, they get to touch base with the folks that are local, and many times they're geolocated, and they're going to get that information across the country, and they're going to know what's in the forecast. They need to know when to expect it and where it's expected to occur. So folks need to get that type of information, just like in winter with snow and ice. If you know that's going to be along your travel route, you need to do the same thing with thunderstorms because it's extremely difficult out there. Here are some places real quickly. You can get information. You can go to weather.gov, click on your area. It'll take you to your local weather office. You can click on your local media outlet. You're going to get a ton of information there as well. But usually in every upper right-hand corner, if there's a situation report that is in effect, you'll see it highlighted in yellow. At least I know it's that way for sure in the central region offices. So that's one way that you can get a little bit more detailed information. The other is underneath the current hazards, experimental graphical hazardous weather outlook. You click on this, it'll go to a new page. You got a graphic on the left, you got chiclets or little rectangles on the right. Each one of those little chiclets or the images on the right that you click on will display on the left. And for this example, I use the fire weather. Day one, we had an extreme risk for fire weather across parts of south central Kansas. And you can see it includes lightning, excessive rainfall, thunderstorm, wind, hail, tornado, so on and so forth. So it's a great way to look at the forecast over the next 7 days to get an idea of exactly what you can expect and which days we're expecting that. Now, these 4 graphics that I have here from the Storm Prediction Center are not from the same date. I just want to kind of give folks an idea of the different products that they can look at if they're not too overly engrossed with weather like a lot of people are. The first is the Categorical Outlook. They're going to get that from the Storm Prediction Center. Also, our media partners are going to be sharing all of that information as well. You've got the marginal, slight, enhanced, moderate, and high risk for severe weather, and that's just overall severe weather. But the Storm Prediction Center also gives you the ability to understand the likelihood of tornadoes. And so the graphic that I'm showing actually bullseye at 45% chance of tornadoes within 25 miles of a point. But what they also have on here are some hatched lines. Those hatched lines represent a 10% chance of an E of 2 or greater tornado within 25 miles of a location. So you have that for tornadoes. Same thing for hail, except the difference for the hatched area for hail. I believe it's going to be, 2 inches in diameter for hail, a 10% chance of 2-inch or larger hail within that hatched area. And then the last one's high winds. And the winds are basically wind speeds greater than 65 knots, roughly around 70 miles an hour. So those are some great graphics. our media partners do a fantastic job of sharing that as well, so the folks have an idea of what to expect. If you are out spotting, find a favorable location for seeing the sky. Try to get in a spot to where there are no blockades, like a tree line. I mean, we do even have a few of those here in Kansas. Some of the hills, I know they got mountains even down in Oklahoma. So you've got to position yourself properly. Make sure you have a phone or GPS with you, radar data with geolocation services. I can't stress enough how important that is. No matter where you get that radar data, be it from the private weather companies, be it from our weather partners or some of the other third-party apps, get radar data with geolocation services. That way you're always going to know where you are in relation to the storm, and you can stay out of harm's way. I like to tell folks, because a lot of the dots are blue, keep your blue dot out of the red storm. Red and blue mixed together is what? Purple. And what shows up on our body is purple? Bruises. So I want to keep folks safe, keep them out of harm's way. They need to know the movement and the speed. And then one thing, if you're traveling, let folks know of your plan, or even if you're spotting, where you're planning to spot, just in case something happens. They've got a starting point to go look. So those are some of the things to look for. Proper positioning yields better results. You can see the features better. You're going to be safe. If you're in a bad spot, you're not going to be able to see a lot of the storm features. And it's also going to potentially put you in harm's way. If you're traveling, like I said earlier, know about storms along the route. Make sure you have a charged phone, or you have some type of charging capability in your vehicle, weather apps, radar data, and let others know your route, expected time of departure and arrival. That way, if you're late, they know where to start looking along that route. So those are all some of the things that we like to talk about. Also, as you're traveling, you're spotting, like here, we got Dale on the side of the road looking off to the north, just off the highway. If you're traveling north on this roadway here, first thing you need to do is observe your surroundings and assess the situation. First thing you got to do, and you can do it well in advance before you ever get there. And then once you kind of observe those surroundings, assess the situation, you need to determine the storm strength and the storm movement. Because if you're heading to the north and the storm's moving to the east, you can kind of eyeball it and figure out, well, am I going to be driving into the storm, or is it going to clear the roadway before I get there? So that's very important as well. Then you need to decide to go or not go. Once you've done all those determinations, am I going to go or not go? And the thing that I like to refer back to is, we're going back into music groups again here with the Clash. Those of you familiar with the Clash, they had a song back in the day, Should I Stay or Should I Go Now? Now that's going to stick in a lot of people's head this spring when they're out there chasing storms, but they need to think about that. Don't risk it. I told my kids for years, they've got to use the lawyer scales here, and they got to weigh the risk reward. And if it's too high of a risk, just don't take it if that scale gets off balance. So those are some of the things that folks need to think about. Here's a great image, from my parents' home down near Rick's neck of the woods there. I'm on an outflow boundary looking off to the northeast, and I can see a towering cumulus with a nice anvil and overshooting top. Storm doesn't look that impressive on the radar imagery, but when I look at it visually, it's much more appealing, much more stronger, and it's something that if I'm only looking at radar, I might take a risk, but if I'm looking at it visually, I'm probably going to avoid that area. Fortunately, here in the plains, everything is north, south, east, west, and 1 square mile makes it a lot easier. East of the Mississippi, forget it. I tell you what, when I lived in Louisville for a couple of years, I never figured out the roads. Never. Because everything started in Louisville and it went out like a wagon wheel. And then when you got to an intersection, the name of the road would change to a different name in the road. I never could figure it out. So I was always driving, shaking my head, trying to figure out where in the world I was going. The only place that I truly knew was a little further south at Bardstown. That was the only Sonic in the area. So we traveled down to Bardstown a lot to get Sonic. So I did know my way around there. Utilizing the tools, we're looking at a thunderstorm here. It's got a thick cumuliform updraft. You can see a little rain-free base, maybe a little bit of a wall cloud there and some precipitation off to the left. but it's hard to determine or discern if that's actually a strong storm. Is it a severe storm? Just by visually looking at it. This is where radar imagery comes into play. Because now when you look at the radar imagery, you see that that storm has a massive DBZ bullseye right in the middle. So you know it probably has a pretty good hail core. And if you were able to look at that image a little closely, there on the southwest quadrant, it's a little bit of a hail spike. So that tells you, yep, that's a strong storm. It's producing hail. I'm going to stay out of there. So another thing I like to ask my spotters, if they're traveling on the road like Dale is right here, and they see this storm ahead of them, it's a supercell. It's a rotating storm. He's looking right at the rain-free base. The precipitation's off to the right. Looks like there possibly could be a wall cloud. You got to make a decision. Am I going to keep driving, or am I going to pull off to the side of the road and safely observe it and wait for it to cross the road? Dale does a great job here. Pulls over, waits it out, films it, reports it, and then goes on to his destination. Folks need to understand they got to be prepared for devastation. I can't say it enough. I mean, we've all seen it. This was from Bryce Kintai back in 2011 with the Joplin tornado. He wasn't expecting to see this type of degree of damage. Just like, I wasn't overly expecting to see the amount of damage when I went into Alabama from the 2011 event myself. I knew it was bad. I didn't realize it was that bad. And it's just something that folks have to be prepared for. And if they're out traveling, or if they're out spotting, or if they're chasing, they could drive up on scenes that are extremely unexpected. We could have injuries, we could have fatalities, just complete devastation. And that's going to affect us. And I know this is one of the things Rick likes to talk about a lot, is mental well-being. This right here will affect you. And you have to keep that in the back of your mind. It could happen. So I'm going to quickly try and go through some squall line thunderstorms here. Generic schematic of a squall line. Basically, we're looking, right down the line of a squall line. This would be moving from left to right. So we're basically right underneath the shelf cloud, looking the whole distance of that storm. We got the cold, dry air getting entrained from the backside of the storm. And as it comes down on the ground, the warm moist air that's coming into it's actually getting forced up on the leading edge. It's not like the hot air balloon type updrafts that we get with the single cells and the supercells. Basically, as these storms form because of the cooler rear inflow and the warm moist air coming up on the leading edge, it gets undercut because of the denseness and of the cooler, forces the air up into the storm to develop storms along the line. So the updraft, for the most part, for a squall line is the whole length of that storm system. It could be tens, hundreds of miles long because it's getting forced up on the leading edge. And here's what it may look like in real life is here we got Dale once again off the side of the road looking off to the north, and he's got a squall line moving from left to right. And you can envision this in the video. You can see the clouds on the left moving from left to right. And then just above that, you can actually see some of the clouds getting lifted and moving off to the left. So it gives you a good depiction of the airflow right there at that interaction point with the warm, moist inflow and the cool downdraft outflow right there. Here's that shot from Bryce Kintai earlier. He was on the west side of Wichita as he observed this storm, had a squall line moving through the city. And he's got a beautiful shelf cloud with lots of striations above it. Typically, when I talk about storms and I talk about striations, be it with a rotating supercell or with the squall line, I generally infer they're pretty much severe thunderstorms because they're the strongest type of storms that we're going to be dealing with. So I really encourage folks to look at these storms, look for the striations, be it in a squall line shelf cloud or the updraft of a mesocyclone. Some of the hazards that we have to deal with, here we have Stats is chasing a picture from him. And these two images do not go together. I just kind of gave an idea of where Stats would be when he was looking at this. The biggest threat is generally going to be right at the beginning of the shelf cloud with the strong gust front winds. Also, there's going to be some strong downburst winds in the precipitation area just on the back side of that. So we like to talk about worst is first and then comes the rain. Then you can get the wind-driven hail with these storm systems. Fortunately, you don't have the stronger rising air. The hailstones don't get quite as large, but they're driven by very powerful winds, and they may have more of an effect than even some of the larger hailstorms. We got to be careful of frequent lightning. There was one time I was out spotting, and one of my partners out there with the media was spotting, reporting live, and he's probably about 6'5", standing outside of his vehicle, reporting live on the air. And I had to roll down my window and say, "What are you doing? You're the tallest object around. You need to be inside the vehicle." As lightning, we've talked about it over the years. It's an underrated killer. And then tornadoes. Now, I have rare here, the QLCS type tornadoes and squall lines, because they are a little bit more rare for us in the plains. East of the Mississippi, erase the word rare, because it happens quite frequently. Further east you go across the United States. The anatomy of a squall line, once again, this storm system is moving from left to right. I depicted the warm, moist air getting pushed up over the cooler, more dense downdraft. And where those meet, that generally where that shelf cloud is going to develop. Just above it, in this case, we've got several striations. I kind of call the shelf cloud the snow plow, because in essence, it's just like a line of snow plows on the highway coming through and pushing that snow up and out of the way. Well, that's kind of what the shelf cloud does. It kind of comes in, it kind of scoops up that warm, moist air, throws it up into the storm to feed it in the updraft along that whole line. So that's kind of the snow plow effect that we have going on right there. Another view, this one's moving from left to right. You can definitely see a lot of times that shelf cloud's got that triangular shape, and I think that's because of the interactions of the airflow. One's coming down and straight out, and the other's getting forced up at an angle into those folds, those striations in a shelf cloud. I'm going to go back to the 80s again. If you can recall, the Firebirds, Trans Ams, and Camaros, they all had louvers on the back of their cars. Well, each one of these striations or fold is kind of like the entry point for that warm, moist air to get in to that storm system. So it's kind of like the 80s and those louvers on the back side of those cars. That can way folks kind of get a visualization of that. Also here, you got the bluish green sky, wind-driven hail, got to stay out of it.
So Chance,
I like to keep things. Yeah.
That's
go
a
ahead.
good question right there. Is that what causes the stack of plates, the striations, that we're used to in those big planes, supercells?
That's my understanding. Of course, somebody like Harold Brooks or Victor Gensini, I'm sure they've got a much more meteorological answer to that. But from what I can gather, and my understanding is yes. Now, if anyone else has any other thoughts on that, feel free to chime right in. No? Okay. I like to keep things simple. If it looks bad, it usually is bad. Get out of there, get into cover. Here's another view of a squall line moving across the city of Wichita, taking out the back door of one of our meteorologists. Once again, you got that angular shelf cloud striations above it. Storm system came through, produced about 65-mile-an-hour winds across the city. Another view, this one shows a kind of more of a detached shelf cloud moving from right to left. So these spotters, Bryce and Beth, are looking off to the south-southwest as the storm's approaching them. And there's actually some low-hanging SLCs underneath that shelf cloud. And a lot of people are saying, well, what in the world's an SLC? Well, it's a scary looking cloud. Every storm system has a scary looking cloud. All right.
So we call them CLCs in Alabama. So
what's a CLC?
Creepy looking cloud.
Yeah, I love it.
You had to ask, Chance. You had to ask.
But the key here is I don't want folks just automatically jumping on Twitter, jumping on the phone, seeing that low-hanging SLC, saying, I got a funnel cloud, I got a wall cloud. I want them to sit there and observe it. Because I'm going to tell them, if you see a tornado, odds are it's a tornado. If you have to think about it, you need to observe it. Watch it for a minute. Watch it for 2 minutes. And better yet, if you got a tablet or a phone, all you got to do is shoot some video of it and scrub it back and forth. You're going to be able to see the motion of it, and you're going to be good to go. You're going to have a better understanding of what that storm's going to produce. And this is what happened shortly afterwards. Truck and trailer got overtaken by it. Positioning, whenever we're dealing with squall lines, if you can't get into shelter, basically you got to be ahead of it and you got to stare it down. Sometimes we told folks to point away from it. I would rather see it from the front, because even today's cars, aerodynamics are better from the front than they are from the rear. So if you can't get to shelter, just stare it down. Put some glasses on, so that way if you do happen to get hit by debris, the glass doesn't get into your eyes. And here's a great depiction of a car that's backed up off of a dirt road into an entry into a field. Got a shelf-clad squall line off to the left, moving right at them. And it just kind of shows the airflow going over the car. And of course, there's several low-hanging, scary-looking clouds under there. So we got to be careful with those. Sit there, observe it, know what's going on, which leads me right into my next slide. Once again, you got Dale sitting on the side of the road. He's observing his surroundings, assessing the situation, determining the storm movement, and then trying to decide, do I go or not go? To an untrained person, they're going to see this and they're going to say, well, the rain looks like it's off to the side of the road. It's a very thick, it's a very dense precipitation area. The darker the rain area is, the more we need to avoid it, because you don't know what's in there. And yes, it is off the side of the road, but just over the roadway, you've got that bluish green tinge. Well, we all know that's hail. So this is a case where you probably wouldn't want to go. And within 10, 15 minutes, that storm's going to completely clear the roadway and you can go on to your destination. So we'll get into supercells real quickly here. Some of the mid and upper level features that we're looking at. First off is the Anvil Air Rises. This is the hot air balloon effect for the updraft, basically. It's like when you pull the lever on the hot air balloon, starts to heat the air inside, so that air inside's warmer than the surrounding environmental air, it's going to rise. And as it rises up, if you have increasing winds with height, it's going to go up at an angle, which for a stronger storm, you want to see a tilted updraft. If you got a vertical one, I'm not too worried about it, because what goes up is going to come right back down. But if you got a tilted updraft, all the precipitation is going to fall out ahead of it. Storm's going to last a little bit longer. You get into these supercells, that's a little bit more difficult to discern because they're so large. But the Anvil basically is where that air rises to a point where it can't go any higher and it flattens out like an inversion. And smoke, we call it the equilibrium level. The direction it's spreading is the direction that it's moving. If you have a part of that anvil that's extended behind the updraft tower, that's called a back sheared anvil. That's a visual clue for me that it's a stronger storm, because as the air goes up, it actually splits when it can't go any higher. Well, if it splits and goes with the prevailing winds, woof, it's gone. But if you see a back sheared anvil, that means that the air going up is stronger than the air moving that storm. So that tells me I have a very powerful updraft, higher likelihood for a severe storm. And then the coup de grace is the overshooting top. Basically, that's kind of air getting into the stratosphere for the most part, above that equilibrium level. And you're only going to see these upper level features from about 10, 15 miles away. Lower level features, the forward flank, that's where all the precipitation is falling out ahead of the updraft. The further away from the updraft, the lighter the precip. The closer the updraft, the heavier the precip, larger the hail. You have a rain-free base where all the air is rising up into the storm. Underneath that rain-free base, you can get a lowering. It's called a wall cloud. Comes in all different sizes, shapes, and colors. That's where the air is rising the fastest up into the storm. So it cools and condenses that much quicker and forms a little bit closer to the ground. For spotters, one of the things that they need to keep in mind, the higher that storm base is, the more difficult it is to get circulation to the surface. The lower it is, the easier it is to get circulation to the surface. So, looking at that rain-free base and how high or how elevated it is also crucial from a spotting standpoint. The Mesocyclone, that's basically that updraft, and it's a rotating updraft, because not only do we have increasing winds with height, with the supercell, we have directional shear, winds changing direction with height. A quick example, the winds at the surface are from the southeast. You go up 5,000 feet, they're from the south-southeast. Then from the south, south-southwest, southwest, west-southwest. So you get the gradual turning of the winds with height. throughout the levels of the atmosphere. And that's what gives it the rotation or the turning, or i.e. the barbershop pole that many of us like to talk about whenever we're dealing with supercells. I like to tell folks to look at the updraft itself. It's going to tell you the strength many, many times. If you can see very thick, white cumuliform clouds, kind of like Arnold Schwarzenegger back in the day when he was doing his bodybuilding contest, it's strong, it's powerful. Versus ones that are soft, fuzzy, and indistinct like me. If there's a huge difference between Arnold and me, well, if it doesn't look strong, it probably isn't strong. Look for those thick, vibrant clouds, and that's going to give you an idea of the amount of moisture and the amount of rising air going up into that storm. So some of the lower level features, once again, off to the left, we have what we call a rear flank downdraft, mid and upper level winds coming in. They're pushing it, has nowhere to go but descend down to the ground. And when it hits the ground, it gets wrapped back into the updraft through the inflow winds, and it helps increase the spin of the storm. So if we could see that clearing backs,
I think we've lost Chance.
I was hoping it was just me, James, but it must be.
Yeah. I think we've all lost Chance here. Chance, can you hear us?
Guess not.
I think we've lost the bandwidth here on his end. So, Bill, we might you want to take a pause here and
yeah, we can do that.
Roll some.
We talked to Ryan Bond. He just joined us. Ryan, can you hear us?
Well,
I can. Can you hear me?
There we go. Hey, Ryan. Chance, are you back with us? I think we've lost your bandwidth, Chance. Maybe you go out and come back in. You're showing so much great imagery, it might be eating up the bandwidth. We can talk to Ryan Bond for a second, James, or we can take the break and
let's talk with Ryan, because Ryan's a very busy man, a very busy man, an important man.
And he's been doing the most important stuff tonight, and that's family stuff, Ryan, right?
That is. I was at a cheerleading banquet.
Yep.
Yep, there you go. You're like the Hampton Inn commercial where the dad's walking in with the little girl, the dancer, and he's obviously not interested in what she's doing, but he's really happy to be there for her. So I know how that goes. And Ryan, something Chance just said a minute ago made me think. He was talking about, that updraft being tilted. You were watching Friday night. Your chaser was in, and I may say it wrong, Bono or Bono. I don't know how y'all said it, but you were saying, wait a minute, you're getting hail. You'd have to be a lot further north. And then you realize that storm's probably spitting out those big hailstones, several miles to the southeast of where the core was.
We had a lot of that, actually, going back and looking at radar data afterwards, after you got out of the fight. And you kind of match it up with where it was. And everyone's probably getting sick of me asking, well, what size hail did you have? Because I'm going back and looking at analysis, and there was some very large hail being shot out of the storm also.
Well, I know Troy got a hold real quick. I got wind that you were on and jumped over the what's the network or the family of stations that you belong to, Ryan?
Oh, we're with Gray TV.
With Gray, yeah, they do such a great job, on that channel where they pull whatever's happening around the country. And I was thrilled to be able to see what you were doing. And Rick got involved, and we were kind of watching with great interest as that event unfolded. And I think a little later we're going to get into the tornado emergency part of it, whether that was justified or not. Not so much with Chance while we got him here, but we were all enthralled with your coverage. So I know you were, as Rick said, trying to do family stuff Friday night too, and that didn't work out so well either, huh?
We squeezed in most of it. We had just bought our slushies at the end of the night, and then I looked at my phone and said, "Tornado warning." I said, "Girls, y'all want to go to the station?" Yeah.
Oh my.
Well, and Chance, sorry we lost your bandwidth there for a minute. We'll get you restarted here in a second. But Ryan Vaughn joined us, and of course in Jonesboro, Arkansas. He was there Friday night as that tornado warning was happening. That had to be kind of probably a first for you, Ryan, having your family there in the station and having to decide you might have to evacuate or at least go to shelter.
Yeah, we've had some times before where we are under a tornado warning, but the couplet's going, far enough north or south where we're not overly concerned. But, as that storm was coming in, it was really close to the station. And like you said, I had the girls with me. My boys, they're 17 and 19 now. I believe at least my youngest son's been there for severe weather coverage before, but to take cover like that, I had to talk to one of our digital people in the middle of coverage and, make sure that my girls weren't running outside to see what was going on or anything like that.
Are they prone to do that? Right?
No, they're not bad.
When
I couldn't see them, though, it threw me off, but they had already taken cover. So the joke around here, of course, nobody knows who Patricia is because she's behind the scenes, but a lot of social media, because I said, "Hey, Patricia, make sure the girls are in the hallway." A lot of social media was like, "Don't know who Patricia is, but she's the MVP."
Well, take us back to that. I mean, I'm sorry, James, go ahead.
I was going to say, what we'll do, Bill, is probably let Chance finish. And Ryan, do you have to do the 10 o'clock tonight? Have you got a few minutes? How are you doing on time?
I've got time. I've got time.
Okay, great. Because again, we had
back to the plan. Chance. Back to the plan here.
Right. So let's go back to plan A. So Chance, you finish the storm spotting session, and then we're going to bring in Ryan and talk about the tornado emergency and the whole concept of a tornado emergency. Do we need to have them anymore? Are they helping or hurting? So Chance, the floor belongs to you as you've got the rat in the wheel working again. Go. I thought we did.
Maybe.
There we go. How about now?
Maybe. Yes. There we go. Loud and clear.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Good. Loud and clear.
I think I have about 15 more slides, so I'm trying to get through them pretty quickly here. So I'm anxious to hear the discussion on tornado emergency also. Just another view of a supercell off in the distance here. Let me make sure I got my pointer in the right location there. So once again, you got your rain-free base. Once again, get an idea how high that rain-free base is above the ground level. Forward to flank off to the right. There's no wall cloud here. So basically just in one of these cases where you sit and observe. And in this case, actually, if you look on the back side of the updraft tower, you can actually see a tilt to it. So that lets you know that you have a tilted updraft here. Here we have a more difficult type scenario with this supercell. You can easily see some striations going kind of across the updraft tower from left to right at an angle. But some of the other things we're looking at, the rain-free base, there's kind of a hidden wall cloud. It's kind of mixed within the rain-free base and the inflow tail. Inflow tail is a nice little feature that's going to help the spotters in many, many cases, because basically what a tail cloud is rain-cooled air that's getting ingested in the updraft, and it cools that much quicker. So it has a tendency to point towards a precipitation area. So that's generally the direction that storm is going to be moving. This picture here, though, this storm's actually got a lot of rotation, and it's actually wrapping rain all the way around the backside. It's not a completely rain-wrapped storm quite yet, but it's definitely getting there. The rear flank downdraft, like I said, it's extremely important because it's a downburst on the backside of the storm. Gets re-ingested into the updraft and can enhance the spin of the storm. I'm not going to get into a lot of depth on whether or not it's a cold or a warm RFD. There are two differences. The warm RFD generally is the kind we don't like to see because it's definitely going to enhance a storm, whereas a cold will many times kill it off. But it's a clearing on the backside of the updraft tower. A lot of times it has a small horseshoe shaped appearance. Sometimes it's an actual hole where those winds are descending. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a 15-minute sequence from Scott Blair, who's up in Kansas City, a very well-known chaser and Weather Service employee. He's sitting here looking at a supercell storm at the rain-free base. You got a very impressive wall cloud and a funnel dangling down underneath that wall cloud. Off to the right, we got a streamer of SLCs or inflow scud clouds coming into the storm, and it's getting re-ingested. But if you look just off to the left, the sun is shining. You got a pretty little hole to where those warm air, where that warm air is descending to the surface to help increase the spin. We're going to move 5 minutes ahead, and you can actually kind of see how this storm is morphing. The wall cloud has descended a little bit closer to the surface. The rear flank has actually increased in size. You can actually visualize how that rear flank downdraft wrapping into the updraft of the storm, and then the inflow tails getting enhanced there as well. Then finally, after about 10 minutes of the initial inception, the wall cloud virtually is almost on the ground at this point in time. And you can just envision going through these 3 different slides, how that RFD stair-stepped around that mesocyclone or their rotating updraft to help enhance the spin of that storm. So this is one of those things where the more experienced spotters and chasers are looking for these for tornado development. You know, they start to get a little bit giddy. They get excited when they see these types of events. Here's another example where you need to utilize every single tool. Here we have Bryce off to the northeast of the storm. And many times behind the supercell is just fine. Where you got to worry about these storms is if it starts to wrap rain around it, then you're going to lose visualization into the rain-free base wall cloud area where the primary tornado will occur. Well, in the image that the Bryce is looking at here, you can easily see the rain-free base. You can see the striations just above the rain-free base. And there's a wall cloud beginning to develop. So he's sitting there, he's observing it. And then you utilize the radar imagery to see it's got a nice little core off to his left. And you can see the cloud streaming off to the left. A lot of times when you look at that radar imagery and you see the streaming of the clouds in a certain direction from a supercell, that's a direction that it's going to be moving. A nice visual of a night storm right here. Here we have a supercell off to the left. You easily see that beautifully tilted updraft with these storms and the striations all the way up that mesocyclone, that updraft. The only problem with night spotting, you're at the mercy of lightning. Otherwise, you're going to have to utilize the other tools like the radar imagery that you have at your disposal. In this case, Dale's safely off the side of the road. He knows what's ahead of him, and he's going to watch it move across the roadway in front of him. Here's another view of what we see versus what you see. This is up in north central Kansas. This storm is actually streaming off to the southeast. A lot of people have a perception that everything moves southwest to northeast. That's not the case. These storms are going to move where the prevailing winds generally, 15,000 to 25,000 feet up in the atmosphere. The direction those upper level winds are flowing is the direction these storms are going to go as well. So instead of being to the southeast of a northeast moving storm, if it's moving southeast, you want to be to the southwest, because that's going to put your rain to the right, rain-free base to the left. Looking at the radar imagery, got a beautiful supercell. We got the bullseye DBZs indicating a large hail. Got a nice inflow notch, got a nice little hook echo, and the storm relative shows gate-to-gate shear, inbound, outbound winds with this storm. And that's what a lot of people don't understand, is that the radar, not only will it see the larger particles and tell us how strong that return is, or the amount of energy measured when it comes back to the radar, it can also detect the motion of those particles. And when you take out the storm motion, then you get the storm relative velocity, and that's what we look for circulation in the storms. So you may see this radar imagery, but we can't see that wedge that's on the ground. That's where this type of information that Kelly submitted can help us in determining, do we need to issue a tornado emergency or not? Also the reports, the damage, there's so many different decision factors that go into that tornado emergency. But when we look at the radar, we look at the strength, we see the tornado itself, and then we're gathering all that information, then we can determine, the type of verbiage we want to put into the warning. Is it a basic tornado? Is it a considerable, or is it a catastrophic? So those are some of the decision processes that we have to make. And these images coming in from the public, the spotters and the chasers, are part of that puzzle that helps us in that decision process. Another couple of views here. You got a supercell up in the right. Bryce and Beth are probably about 6 miles off to the east-southeast of the storm. Looking at it, you can easily see the forward flank, the striations in the updraft. Perfect position. It's going to move right in front of them. The bottom one, Dale, is setting out on the leading edge of a squall line. One of the things I didn't cover, if a squall line, it has a bowing effect to it. That's called a bow echo. Generally has stronger winds right at the apex of the bow. One of the things that folks need to look at in their radar imagery with these squall lines are little V notches in the back of the line. That's where you have very powerful winds cutting into the backside. We call them rear inflow notches. On the downwind side, that's where your stronger winds generally are going to be. Something to think about there. Real quickly, I want to talk just a couple of things about reporting. The on-site report is still the most important information that we can get, because it gives a storm structure, lets us know what features are out there, helps us with the movement. Is it developing? Is it decaying or dissipating? And I think I stole this one from Rick also. The tail, time, event, and a location. That's fantastic, and then if there are any damage reports, the human observation can tell us what is truly happening. That's why they are so valuable. Another view from Bryce and Beth. They're all southwest of a storm. They're on a LP, low precipitation supercell. They were kicking themselves because they weren't up on the Nebraska border with the tornado warned storms. Either way, they still get a beautiful, picturesque storm. A little bit of rain to the right, beautiful tilted updraft, rain-free base, and a wall cloud. And then lastly, this one, I think this is my last one here. This one speaks volumes to me because they're actually looking at a squall line here. And the pictures are so zoomed in, it's very difficult to see. But you can definitely see the shelf cloud there. It's right on the leading edge, just off their doorstep. They're on this radar image, are actually looking off to the southwest. And just to their right, an extremely dark precipitation core. And if you remember earlier, the darker the rain area is, the more you want to avoid it. This is truly the case, because when you look at it from their vantage point here, you can't see that there's probably a lot of hail in this storm. You can infer it because it's so dark. But when you look at the radar image, there's a very indicative hail spike from where the radar beam hits the hail and gets scattered down the radial. So they know they probably need to get the heck out of there so they don't get hammered by hail. And then the image on the left actually has like a rain foot off to the side. So when everything hits the ground, it has a tendency to spread out. I call it the elf boot. So if you see something on the edge of a precipitation area that's actually flaring at the surface, that's a good sign you probably have very powerful downburst winds, and you want to avoid the area if at all possible. We like to know who is reporting. I don't have to have your name, but I'd like to know your affiliation, who you're affiliated with. What was the event? Was there any damage? Short, sweet, to the point. Where are you, and where is the feature or the hazard that's occurring? Because here in the plains, we can see for 10, 20 miles. And if they say I'm, 2 miles north of Heston and I got a tornado on the ground, and I look 2 miles north of Heston, there's nothing there, but there's something further to the north up at Salina, that's a huge difference. So let us know where you are, where you're looking, so we have an idea of where that storm is. Did it happen? Is it happening right now? Did you come upon the damage? And that's just as important as well. Why? Don't need to worry about that. We'll save that for later. You can submit a storm report on the weather pages. You go to current hazards, scroll down, says submit a storm report. You do that. It's going to try and geolocate you as best possible. and it will alert us in the weather offices. Tag us on social media, Facebook. Like I said, pound KSWX, pound OKWX, pound PAWX, pound ALWX. Each state has an identifier. You can tweet your information there. We're all monitoring it. You can go through spotternetwork.org. It alerts our internal chat systems. You can download an app off the web, MPing, MPING. You can report weather through that anywhere that you're located through that app. And here's just some quick examples of some images that came in to support the radar imagery in our local area. And I know that's going to be a little bit more difficult for the folks that are listening in. That's why it would be great for them to come in a little bit later and watch the video. But it's just a wonderful asset to us. And one thing I did want to mention is we snagged this from the Birmingham office. If you are going to tweet radar imagery, please don't tag the weather offices. We are watching radar, and that will have a tendency to fill up the feed, and we may miss important information. Because when we get to a significant weather event, it's like a teletype. I mean, that thing is just constantly scrolling, and we don't want to miss important reports. That's because you tagged us saying, here's a radar image. So keep that in mind as well. So with that, I'll leave my contact up there for just a moment if anybody wants to jot it down. And I wanted to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for giving me the opportunity to talk just a little bit about weather. If you couldn't tell, I have a passion for it. I just love educating people when it comes to weather. So thank you all.
Well, thank you, Chance. That passion is obvious, and we thank you for what you do. You really indicated tonight, though, that the training that the Weather Service offices do is more inclusive than some people might think, because arming everyone with this information is wonderful. So reiterate how they can go about taking advantage of it at the different Weather Service offices, and maybe Rick can join in and talk about from Norman.
Yeah, well, I would like to add, every single office is just a little bit different. Our philosophy is I like to be in the communities that we serve. So we're going to go out, provide this training to the public. Other weather offices may have a somewhat different philosophy. I mean, there's no way Rick can get to all the counties that he has in his jurisdiction. He's got way too many. So he has to sectorize his, which is a fantastic way. Other offices may only provide the training to their Skywarn spotters and or first responders. And then other offices may be moving towards virtual training only. I would encourage each person to go to their local office website, because there is some form of training generally available, and go that route. And if it's not available to them, all they have to do is a web search for online spotter training, and they can get to it's called Meteorological Education site, and take the online course.
Rick, anything you want to add to that?
I think that's right. I've been wanting for years to stop calling it storm spotter training, because it's the exact same thing. We get people like, I don't want to be a storm spotter. I'm not going out there and getting my car beat up by hail and crazy stuff like that. I just, so we really want more people to go. And when I go to a spotter class in person, I'm so excited when I ask for a show of hands, how many people have never been to one of these before, and there's a bunch. I mean, God love our spotters, but a lot of these people come to these classes every single year, and that's awesome. But to get more people involved and to teach more people about safety is so important. You don't really need a 2-hour training class to be able to look out the window and give an estimate of the hail size, which is what most spotter reports are in our office and Chance's office, and probably most Weather Service offices. But I really welcome the opportunity to just talk to people. It's always great to see kids in the class. So yeah, we're very, very inclusive, and we're not restricted at all as far as who can come to the training. The more the merrier, and the newer the better.
And Rick, we had one question there that was asked that we didn't really have a chance to jump in. Do you want to ask it now of a Chance, and then I think it'll give you the opportunity maybe to rant for a little bit.
Well, I don't know if we want to do that right now. We want Ryan to have a chance to No, I'm just sitting here thinking this needs to be a whole episode. Chance, I don't know if you get this, but I'm getting this. This is the most frequently asked question, and I'm trying to be a big boy and not be irritated by it. But this whole business of is Tornado Alley shifting east? I get that every single presentation or talk I do, and I just want to scream, no, it's not. And I don't know. How do you answer that question? Do you get that?
Oh, all the time. I think everything goes in cycles. I mean, there were several years ago when things seemed to be transitioning a little bit further east. And then lo and behold, it came right back. 2012 was one of our most prolific tornado seasons we've had in Kansas in history. So I think a lot of it just depends on where the moisture is pooling, where the upper flow is going, be it over the Central Plains, be it over, the Mississippi Valley, or be it in the far southeast. I think everything goes into cycles. And how can you say it's shifting east when we had over 60 tornadoes in Iowa just in December? Now I will throw the caveat. Our office has had, over the last 2 years, 5 tornadoes, 0 in 2020 and 5 in 2021. Believe me, I'm saying that I'm being quiet too. But
let's shift it back west.
State line.
But yeah, I think it just everything goes in cycles. You're going to see it shift over the course of time. Is it a new tornado alley? It's all tornado alley. Exactly. I mean, you could just go through the Central Plains over to the southeast and kind of avoid Appalachia just a little bit. That whole area is tornado alley to me.
Yeah,
that's just my thoughts.
Yeah, I agree. I could go on and on about it. You kind of answered it like I would. Tornado Alley is basically east of the Rocky Mountains, where if tornadoes happen there, you're in Tornado Alley. It's not a contest between Dixie Alley and Plains Alley, and who cares? I mean, it's just, I don't know. Why I get so passionate about this is people think that somehow their risk is lower now because of this study that Harold Brooks and Victor Gensini did, and it was totally misinterpreted. The headlines were totally misinterpreted about this shifting east business. And I don't want people in the Wichita CWA or the Norman CWA or Tulsa or anywhere else to think, man, we're done with that. Sorry, Birmingham and Memphis and Little Rock and Jackson, it's all yours now. No, I mean, nothing has changed. The Gulf is still there. The desert's still there. The mountains are still, anyway, I'm sorry. I could go on and on, but
no, that's okay. And I think you're right. That could be a single episode on its own.
You can get Victor and Harold on here and just have at it.
So. Yeah.
All right.
Well,
thank you.
And Chance, I know your office, and I don't know if you were the WCM in 2012 when the Conway Springs tornado emergency happened. We're not going to draw you into a lot of that tonight, but we would welcome your comments at any point. James, if you want to transition us to the recorded segments, I think we can come back out and talk on the other side about the events Friday night in Arkansas, and then also the general state of the tornado warning.
Yeah, everybody in the tweeter and they're all talking about what happened Friday, the tornado emergency in which there was no tornado. And we're going to talk about that, and we're going to do it in a civilized way. And it's not going to be to criticize any weather service office, any individual. There's a broader, important subject we need to talk about here. So anyway, we're going to devote the rest of the show really to that. But before we do that, and we're going to bring in Ryan because he was obviously in the middle of it Friday night. But before we do that, we're going to take a break, and we're going to hear from Tony Rice, and we're going to hear from Jen. We'll bring in Bruce, and then we'll be right back and talk about tornado emergencies. Do they need to go away? Are they still useful? Is it killing regular tornado warnings? So a lot to talk about here as WeatherBrains rolls along.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony Rice with your astronomy outlook.
The Lyrid meteor shower peaks this Friday evening into early Saturday morning. Normally, this isn't one that I'd mark on my calendar, but this year might be worth a look. Technically, it's a medium strength shower, but you're still going to have some patience. And as always, darker skies mean more visible meteors. Under dark skies, in a rural site, you might see as many as 15 to 20. From more suburban areas, about half that, probably less. And from downtown anywhere, you're going to struggle to see anything. What's different this year is the usual advice for maximizing the number of meteors doesn't apply. Normally, I'd suggest you set your alarm for a few hours before sunrise while skies are still dark and Earth is turning into the stream of debris left behind by the parent comet. But this year, best viewing is going to be around midnight, say 11 p.m. to around 1 a.m. That's thanks to the 2/3 full moon, which rises around 2 a.m., spoiling the show. So if you're somewhere with mild evening temperatures, spend some time outside looking up. There's actually another meteor shower coming up and it doesn't get as much attention, but it might be worth a look as well, especially because of its more convenient hour. The Pi Puppet meteor shower peaks next Saturday night, April 23rd. Best viewing is as soon as the sky gets dark. And this is because the radiant point, or point in the sky where all the meteors appear to be coming from, begins to set in the south just after dark. That means all the meteors will appear to be shooting upwards, which is kind of cool. This is a variable meteor shower, and that means it's so unpredictable that experts aren't even willing to handicap it. And with a radiant near the horizon, we're only going to see about half of the meteors in the sky. The rest will be hidden below the horizon. So I wouldn't expect more than a couple, even from the darkest sites. But still, it's not often we get to see meteors right after dark. And you might be hearing a little more about this shower in coming years. You see, the Pi Puppets have produced up to 60 meteors per hour in years when the parent comet, discovered back in the early 70s, comes closest to the sun. And that's happening in about 2 years. That's your Astronomy Outlook. Follow me at RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
This week in tornado history, April 21st, 2001. An F4 tornado crossed 5 miles through parts of Barton County, Kansas. The tornado developed 1 mile southwest of Hoisington. It rapidly intensified as it entered the west side of town, climbing to F4 intensity within minutes. For the National Weather Service summary, quote, while crossing northwest Hoisington, the tornado inflicted a path about 2 miles long and about 2 blocks wide of almost complete destruction. 182 homes were destroyed, 52 with major damage, 12 businesses were destroyed. The roof was torn off the hospital. Power was lost to most of the northwest and north side of town. After leaving this area, the tornado weakened. It produced F1 to F2 damage near Deception Creek. After crossing the creek, the tornado suddenly turned to the northwest and damaged 2 farmsteads. Tragically, 1 man was killed when a minivan fell on him. There were 28 injuries, 3 were critical. Read about this event and hundreds more at tornadotalk.com. Calling all weather enthusiasts. Join the American Meteorological Society by becoming a member of the band at amsweatherband.org. As an AMS Weatherband member, you'll get to go behind the scenes with the scientists of the American Meteorological Society, whose members have been at the forefront of weather, water, and climate research for over 100 years. You'll learn about the very latest research from the scientists who are actually doing it. What's more, you'll become a part of a passionate online community of weather enthusiasts. Get access to exclusive videos, webinars, and other fun content, and support the science you love. Learn more and join the band today at amsweatherband.org.
Well, I'm hearing, that marijuana, becoming more and more prevalent around the country, being legalized in lots of places. And in the chat, Rick announced that he and Chance were going to start having a joint class between their 2 CWAs here very soon. So
Yes.
we didn't want to mistake what that meant.
Hey, man. Oh, dude. Yeah.
We'll do it at a casino there, right off the interstate.
Medicinal.
I was gonna say it'd have to be in Oklahoma. They haven't legalized it for medicinal purposes in Kansas yet.
Okay. So, Ponca City, Blackwell, somewhere. We'll be in touch.
The joint class will be in Ponca City. But Bruce, we're talking tonight. Chance has done a great job tonight sharing his really super approach to storm spotter training and what that means. And we're talking about this event on Friday night, and in Arkansas. Got Ryan Bond on here with us. And we're going to be talking about different kinds of tornado warnings and whether tornado emergencies are still as important as they were when they first came out. Do we even need to still have them? But Bruce, the critical thing is that we've got to get these tornado warnings in the hands of as many people as we can. We've got WHEEL, we got apps, we've got all these things, but the Weather Service developed a network, 60 years ago that is putting this information, this life-saving information in the hands of anybody who has a receiver. Talk about that tonight.
Yeah, the NOAA Weather Radio Network really started in New York City back in 1959, I think it was. They got some of the first transmitters on the air, maybe even earlier than that. They just had the 70th anniversary. So I guess we need to do the math on, I need to do the math on that. 70th anniversary of the New York City transmitter was last year, and the Chicago transmitter will celebrate its 70th anniversary coming up in 2023. So these transmitters have been around for a while. They started out as marine transmissions with marine information, and then people who were living inland heard this thing and they're like, wait, this is fantastic. This service where I've got a radio that can give me instant weather and instant warnings automatically. And so from there, it really took off following some of the tornado outbreaks of the 60s and the 70s. And now NOAA Weather Radio is America's official federal warning system. But it's just surprising to me how many people still, I guess, don't know about it. And so that's why I ask all of you who are fans of WeatherBrains to please help us spread the word that the National Weather Service and NOAA have paid for and developed this fantastic network, 1,033 transmitters nationwide and in all 5 U.S. territories that do nothing but provide life-saving weather information. And it's a continuous broadcast. It's a free broadcast, free to take advantage of. I pay $100 a month for the service on my cell phone. That's $1,200 a year. But NOAA Weather Radio, that signal is free. And the system was developed as our official federal warning system. I'm just flabbergasted that more people do not use the system. So I task all of you WeatherBrains fans, with helping us get the word out that this system works very, very well, especially at night when you're fast asleep and unbeknownst to you, you left your phone in do not disturb mode, or you left your phone in sleep mode. Remember, you did that several months ago when you needed a good night's sleep, and now you've forgotten that that phone is going to be silent all night long. This is very, very important for all of us to get the word out that NOAA Weather Radio was designed to be an indoor tornado siren, an automatic alert direct from the National Weather Service office. If you'll go to midlandusa.com, the company that I work for, Midland, will give you a deal here using the promo code SPAN25. That's SPANN25. SPANN25. SPAN25 is the promo code that will get you 25% off all the weather products and accessories. And we have Mother's Day coming up soon. We have Father's Day shortly thereafter. There's always a birthday or an anniversary or a baby shower, a wedding reception. There's always a reason for you to give a weather radio and to remind people that this little gizmo picks up a free service direct from the National Weather Service office. And folks, there's no faster way to get the warnings because this comes out first and everything else follows. So the WEA alerts, the app alerts on your phone, that's fantastic to have. And please, I encourage you to sign up for your county's reverse 911, sign up for weather call, sign up for all of the services that you can get because you can never be overwarned. Overwarning is sometimes it's a bother, a nuisance, but underwarning, that can be a funeral. So help us get the word out. NOAA Weather Radio saves lives, and thank you to the National Weather Service and NOAA for running this fantastic radio-based alerting system.
Bruce, I wanted to say that last week I taught my first ever class in person to a great group of homeschoolers. And I showed the slide and told them all about weather radio, even had an example of how it sounds. And so they all knew, and it's a big group of kids, different range of ages, and all the moms were taking pictures of the slide. Most of them had never heard of a weather radio. So you're right. I mean, there's still so many people that don't know. And so I said, look, these are not connected to the cell towers. And so you need to have this so it wakes you up in the middle of the night. And so I'm hoping that there's at least a few of them that are taking the opportunity to get a weather radio.
Well, thanks for mentioning that, because I think that we in the weather business get tired of explaining the difference between a watch and a warning, explaining turn around, don't drown, when thunder roars, go indoors, because we assume that if we say it once, people remember it. And they don't. People are busy thinking about a lot of other things. So we need to constantly remind people the difference between a watch and a warning and the importance of having multiple and redundant weather warning system. So thank you for mentioning that, Jennifer. And for those of you who do these talks, even if it's just in someone's living room between you and your family, please make sure that you remind them they need to have more than one way to receive these warnings.
Bruce, I have a quick question for you that came in on our Discord chat, and maybe you can answer this just super quick. Where are we on segmenting counties for weather radio warnings? Are they doing that yet?
Yeah, great question. They've been testing it at Clark County, Nevada, which is Las Vegas, and the National Weather Service office, Las Vegas, reporting big thumbs up on it. They're going to roll this out nationwide for all the weather forecast offices, supposedly in 2023. It will involve Raytheon, the subcontractor on the AWIPS consoles, writing some new software, but essentially it will allow every weather forecast office, if they want to, and in conjunction with the county emergency managers, to partially divide a county into smaller segments and to warn only those segments that are in direct path of the dangerous storm. And that will reduce a lot of the overwarning, which is the bane of NOAA weather radio.
Well, outstanding, Bruce. We thank you for your support of WeatherBrains, Midland support of our show, and for the great job that you do being the national ambassador for this extremely important life-saving service. And thank you for being here with us tonight.
You bet. Well, I'm in Tennessee for the Tennessee Emergency Management Conference. And of course, I'm in Franklin, Tennessee, and Cookville is right over there, about 25 miles from where I'm sitting right now. And back in 2020, they had that tornado that came roaring through at about 1:45 in the morning. 19 people died, although the National Weather Service had that tornado warning out 10 minutes earlier on NOAA weather radio.
And they had a big storm in that same area last week. A lot of wind, and almost thought we were going to spin up another tornado heading toward Cookville.
It looked scary. Yep.
It really did. But thank you for being here tonight. We want to kind of transition to the conversation to the events of Friday night. Ryan, take us back kind of to what happened. I know you're out enjoying dinner with your family, and all of a sudden you got a tornado warning. Was it really a surprise situation for y'all in that area, or was it something that you expected to happen?
It kind of was a surprise. I mean, the environment, if you went back and looked at it, I mean, we still had the higher Cape well down to the south. Dew points weren't overly impressive. We were still kind of in a cool environment, waiting for everything to kind of advance northward. And we knew we were going to get storms. We knew we were going to get some pretty big storms, but our focus completely was on hail. And, I had plans already to go to take the girls to the trampoline park and but you know how it is. I called Aaron Castleberry, our weekend meteorologist, and we talked, and he said, man, I think it's going to be all hail. I've got it. We didn't look at a team coverage type of thing, but you know how it is. I still threw a sport coat in the Bronco and grabbed my laptop and put it in there, because you just never know. At 6:19, we always text with each other, and I said, I think all this stuff is going to stay elevated. And at 6:50, Castleberry sends an all caps tornado warning. So we were done with the trampoline park. We were picking up slushies, and I hopped in the car and I looked down. I go, the girls, you want to go to the station? So fortunately, I was fairly close to the station, and glanced at radar as we were going into the building, and just kind of trying to catch myself up. Okay, when's the warning? What are we looking at? And the storm was rotating. It was rotating, but at that point, and I'm not sure if you guys were following along, this was in Fulton County, coming out of Baxter County, going into Fulton County. And this thing was about 100 to 110 miles away from any radar. So, I mean, we were in a bad position. We're used to this. We've been there before. And not sure if I can share my screen here. Let me see if I can. And I know some of you are listening and can't see it, so we'll try to paint a little picture for you. Can y'all see that?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So this is a security camera from one of my friend's cameras. It's 8 minutes long, so I'm not going to play the whole thing. I'm just going to kind of skip through. But if you notice up here at the top, you start seeing something near the surface. You start seeing a little bit of a lowering there. And I'll kind of just click along through here till it starts getting a little bit more ominous looking. Now, it doesn't have a really fast spin to it, but I mean, you're really far away from it. But we started getting pictures. I got this video later, but we started getting pictures that looked similar to this right here. So I'm getting this tweeted to me. We have a tornado warning. And pictures, of course, are a little different than getting video. But this marched on along, and then we are getting our tornado warnings. I mean, look at that. If you got a picture of that, am I crazy? I mean, you know, that's what we were getting. So now where in the world do I stop sharing my, let's see.
Up at the top, I think.
A long time.
Right. Yeah.
There we go.
We have so many different platforms we have to learn now.
Yeah, stop share. There we go. So we're getting that pictures coming in. It's starting to get dark. We're in just radar turmoil as far as getting any good look at the storm. Tornado warnings are coming out. Well, once we tell you what, I'm just going to continue screen sharing because why not? And y'all probably looked at this. We started getting storm reports in. And so if you look at a map here, can y'all see this map?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so the storm started up here, and then we started getting all these tornado reports. Look at this here, 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All the way through here, we're getting reports of a tornado. Now, if you look at radar imagery, this is when it was at Cherokee Village. Massive, actually it had just gone through Cherokee Village. Massive hail core. This was probably putting down golf ball size hail at this point, but that's what reflectivity looks like. And to just add insult to injury, we were also in the range fold, but you can spot a little something there south of Sitka. If you go back, let me see if I can go back. Yeah, if you go back one scan, actually maybe 2 scans, we were in sales mode. There was something there south of Baker. Well, we're on air. We're getting tornado reports. We're getting reports that Cherokee Village had just been hit. And when you're clicking back and forth on Max, you can't do the side-by-side like on Gibson Ridge, and you're on air and you're shuffling a million different things. And I see this. And I go, man, that would be a really massive tornado if I'm getting this at 9,000 feet, 11,000 feet, somewhere through there. But we were clicking back and forth, and that CC drop didn't match quite well with reflectivity or with velocity. So my initial thing was, oh man, we've got debris signature, and it lines up with your report. So your situational awareness is switching here. You've already had 5 tornado reports, people reporting damage. Oh, what in the world is that? Hold on. I think we're playing Boston or something. Sorry about that. So we're getting the reports in, but radar wasn't matching up. So the words tornado emergency start coming out. Now, I'm going to admit, I initially did not see those words. And I'm in front of the wall. Not sure if Aaron Castleberry saw it or not, but I initially didn't see them, so I didn't say it. I mean, we're covering it. We're showing the couplet. We're telling the reports, all that stuff. We have a chaser sitting in Lawrence County that it was coming into, and we're treating it just like we would treat any other tornado warning. But I did not say the words tornado emergency just because I didn't see it. But by the time that I did see it, I'm starting to ask these questions in my brain. And I even start thinking that Max, which is our weather computer system, isn't giving us the data in time. In fact, I look over at Aaron Castleberry, and I'm not sure if any of y'all watched, but I said, Aaron, are we getting a reflectivity lag? Because, you know, we get this little appendage and then the CC drops up here. And it was kind of, I'm not sure what we were looking at. First, I was like, okay, is that the 3-body scatter spike? What in the world's going on? And I'm still looking over the data, trying to figure out what in the world went on. So I'm getting all that. Well, then I get a text from James Adelot in Tulsa, who's a meteorologist in Tulsa. And he says, the CC drop is not matching up with reflectivity. So he kind of clears my brain because I'm sitting there in front of the wall going, what is going on here? And that gave me a little bit of a peace of mind to just go, okay, we may not be dealing with what we're thinking we're dealing with, but it's our responsibility to still keep covering it like we're covering it. So we did. And really the big story through the entire thing was the large hail. And we would have gone wall to wall just for the large hail. If the Weather Service had had severe thunderstorm warnings all the way through there, as soon as I start getting tennis ball size hail, we would have been wall to wall. That's just kind of how we treat weather here. The tornado emergency, the false reports, I'm sure you guys have read all about it. You know, I don't fault the Weather Service for the tornado emergency, getting some of the pictures, especially at night. Radar was a little weird, but you're getting ground reports from law enforcement, from storm spotters and all. I don't fault the Weather Service at all. Now, we could have a discussion on should we throw out tornado emergency. I could make that argument for either side. The problem comes in, I think a lot of the storm reporters, storm spotters made mistakes. They saw a lowering, they saw a wall cloud. It's horrible terrain. That is the Ozark Mountains. And I think you feed off of other reports, because I know if I'm sitting there chasing and I'm looking at radar scope and I'm like, wow, it says damaging tornado is coming. That's what's coming towards us. And then you see this what appears to be a wedge tornado, which definitely not the environment for a wedge tornado, which also in your brain, you're sitting there covering this going, okay, I just looked at the HRRR 2 hours ago. Nothing has changed that much to get this type of setup. But at the same time, you never say never. So I think some of the spotters were looking at that, but it's starting to look like through some investigating from the Weather Service that there were some malicious reports also. And there's going to be more investigating on that. Some things that got put in the spotter network from people that were not even in the state. So there's going to be a lot to come out of that. It's scary to think that. And that's why, you know, I love the storm reports, but I've said before that on Twitter, I develop relationships with people. We talk football and basketball and other things on sunny days. We talk about their livestock and their farming and everything, so that when, you know, like a Jason Hampton in Randolph County or a Lewis that works down in Poinsett County, that when he tells me something, I'm going to trust him because I know him. And if he tells me something wrong, I can give him a hard time about it later on. You know, I've really liked these relationships that we have with these people because I can trust them now. And I'm not saying I don't trust storm spotters, but I trust these guys and ladies a lot more than I trust, you know, whoever I'm reading on radar scope. At first, maybe I was naive. I didn't believe the malicious report stuff. I was like, oh, surely somebody wouldn't do that. But after I'm starting to hear about it, I think some malicious reports led to the tornado emergency, which when you start, while everything wasn't adding up, I think everybody with what they were given made the right call at that moment. And I'm glad everyone took cover because we had baseball size hail coming down and the wind alone was crazy. It was a weird night.
Hey, Ryan, I just want to jump in. As you know, I've got family in Jonesboro, so I was caught off guard too. I didn't know anything was going on, and I heard tornado. I don't think I heard it until there was a tornado emergency going on. I was like, what the heck? And so I got on and watched your stream, and I knew from the second I started watching you that something was off. Something just didn't feel right. You were doing a great job. Zach was doing a great job. I'm always amazed by your coverage. But it just felt like something was wrong. And I told my wife, something's not right. This doesn't feel like a tornado emergency. But anyway, the coverage was awesome. I want to jump in about the malicious reports. And I'm going to preface this by saying I don't work in the Little Rock office or the Memphis office. I know people that work in both. I'm not ever going to criticize any other Weather Service office because I don't know what was going on there. I don't have the facts. I have no idea what information they were getting. But speaking for Spotter Network, I'm one of the Weather Service liaisons, advisory board members for Spotter Network. There's a few of us in the Weather Service that participate in that. And I know there's been an investigation going on today. And for this event, for the April 15th event, there was only one tornado report submitted in that area through Spotter Network. Now, whatever other sources of reports there were, I can't speak to that. But Spotter Network only had one, and it was the wedge tornado and power flashes in Walnut Ridge report. That was a Spotter Network report. And it's pretty easy for Spotter Network to go back and investigate whether the location was accurate or not. The location for that report was accurate. So this was not the person who was in another state posting reports. They have identified a person that was doing that, or actually two people that have been doing that over the past couple of weeks. They both had their accounts locked. Spotter Network is serious about policing reports and tracking down people who do the wrong things. And if you screw something up this bad, you're going to maliciously, intentionally, you're not going to have an account anymore, not going to be able to report through that. So they have identified one person that was in Colorado submitting reports to Texas, submitting reports to Oklahoma the other night. So that does happen, sadly. From Spotter Network exclusively, no, it did not happen with this event. Now, again, I don't know where the other reports were coming from. And it had just happened a couple of days before to Little Rock and to Tulsa, I think. So I can understand, it's nighttime. I grew up in Memphis. I worked in Arkansas in that area. I know what it's like. And you said it really nicely. I don't think I never want to think, and I don't think in this case, most of the reports, or if any of them, were somebody going, watch this, I'm going to screw with them with this report. I mean, it's people that I think it was this compounding, oh my gosh, that must be the tornado they're talking about. That's it right there. That looks like a tornado. I'm going to report it to. I think it just snowballed. And I think it snowballed also. A cascade of things that happen.
Even Zach saw power flashes, and we lost power. I mean, if you looked at the power grid, there is a line that goes from Baxter County through Fulton County through Cherokee Village all the way down to Walnut Ridge. So we were losing power, and we were losing transformers, and there were power flashes, and there was a lowering, there was all this stuff. It was the wildest thing. But just like you said, and I'm almost glad that I looked confused and weird on air, because
I didn't say that, but
it just the entire time I was like, I can't wrap my mind. What is going on here? What is going on here? And it's good. And if any broadcasters are watching right now, have yourself a wingman or wingwoman like I have with James Adelot. James, if I know he's texting me during wall-to-wall coverage, he has some very pertinent information. Now I look down, I go, okay, there's something to that now. And that's and that was very, very helpful, because when you're sitting there and you're wall to wall and you may go over to your laptop and glance at radar and then go back through, but you don't really have that time to kind of process and analyze and go up through levels and do all this stuff. So it's good to have somebody just kind of, saying, hey, you're not crazy. There's something, weird with this, but people keep trying to drag me into the drama because Twitter had a huge drama that night. There's some really good spotters that got kind of raked over the coals on bad reports or whatever. And I just didn't want to get involved. Chance said just a little bit ago, don't include, if you're showing a radar, don't include their Twitter handle, because it messes up the feed. Also, if there's Twitter drama going on between storm chasers, don't include my name in it, because that night I didn't get any reports because it was all this drama about false tornado reports. But I really don't think anyone did anything wrong. It's just all snowballed before someone could say, hold up.
Yeah. Well, one more comment. I'm going to let some other people talk and let you keep talking, because we want to hear from you. But I think this whole power flash deal is a huge part of the problem too. I think power flashes have been over glamorized or oversold, or there's this mentality that if you see a power flash, that means something horrible is happening. And in our area, if it's nighttime and people are seeing power flashes, to many people that equates to, oh my God, that means there's a tornado. A power flash is nothing but two power lines touching each other. It's not a transformer exploding. It's not anything dramatic usually. It's the wind blowing. It's an earthquake. It's an ice storm. But I think that just adds to the drama, and that adds to the adrenaline. You're already, oh my God, it's nighttime. Oh my God, I wasn't expecting this. Oh, now there's a tornado warning. Oh, now there's a tornado emergency. Then you start seeing scary looking clouds, creepy looking clouds, where depending on which area you're in, or and then you start seeing the power flashes. Power flashes look dramatic and scary. They don't really mean much though. So I don't know. I've been hitting that much harder in my spotter training. They're not that big of a deal. They can help you in certain situations, but anyway, that's
hey, I'm with you. I mean, from now on, if I see a lot of power outages on a map, used to I'd be like, oh, there's the tornado path. Nope. I mean, we had a perfect line from east of Mountain Home almost all the way to Memphis. Just so, yeah, power flashes mean nothing as far as a tornado or not.
Exactly.
Could we review the different tornado warnings that are issued, either Rick or Chance or whoever want to weigh in on, because I think there's some confusion on a regular tornado warning and then a PDS tornado warning, and then when are they issued and when is a tornado emergency issued?
Chance, you want to take a stab at it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Come on.
Maybe between the two of us, we can figure it out. I don't know.
And is this standardized across every National Weather Service office, this tornado emergency thing, or is this a different set of criteria?
No, I think the criteria itself is pretty much standardized. A lot of it goes into the interpretation and the quality of information that's making it into the National Weather Service offices to help us determine when we need to increase the severity of that tornado warning. Everything generally starts out with your base tornado warning. And then we have the ability, go ahead and share your screen, Rick, if you want. Then you have the ability to look at the radar imagery. You can look at the gate-to-gate shear and look at the rotational velocities to help give you an idea of the potential that tornado may have based on the rotational velocities. But you got to be careful when we're dealing with the elevation slices above ground level. And then basically, what tips us into the tornado emergency or PDS, the catastrophic verbiage is, for us, you've got a large tornado on the ground, has a potential to produce catastrophic type damage in the immediate area where that circulation is. And you want folks to really take heed to that information. So I think it's almost a step-by-step process of gathering information and not necessarily going through a checklist. It might be a mental checklist to ultimately get you to that end point with that warning. And one of the things we're striving to do is if we already have a tornado warning in effect and we want to go with the catastrophic, we're going to reissue just to get more of the bells and whistles out there with that catastrophic warning.
Chance and just Chance or Rick, either one of you, what would you say to someone who says that all tornadoes are an emergency?
That's a great point, Troy. They are, but I can also come back and say not all tornadoes are equal. This is my personal opinion. I want to move away from hazard specific warnings. I want to get away from severe thunderstorm, tornado, flash flood, and I want to have impact based warnings, because you can have low impact tornado warnings, low impact severe thunderstorm, low impact flash flood. You can have moderate, high, extreme, and then you put the hazard in there. That's just my viewpoint, because sometimes we're issuing tornado warnings for rotational velocities 50, 60 knots in some cases, which is a lot less severe than the majority of severe thunderstorm warnings. I do want to reiterate that's my personal opinion, not that of the Weather Service there.
And I appreciate
it now, Chance. Everything's changing. We're going impact. I love that idea.
We are.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
Because that's all that matters is impact. But I wanted to ask you, Rick and Chance, let's say there's a big tornado, you're looking at it. I mean, you got cameras on it, people are seeing it, it's down, it's big, but it's not near a city. Is this thing biased toward population centers? Are tornado emergencies issued for a wide spot in the road with 20 people? How does that work?
This is a topic of conversation in the Weather Service now and has been for a long time. There's two different versions or two different I don't know, policies maybe. The official policy that I just showed that was on the screen, that's from the Weather Service rule book, the directives. There's not a word in there about population. There's nothing that says population centers, populated areas, anything like that. The training that is provided by the Weather Service, and there's a group of meteorologists in our building for the first time in over 2 years taking that training this week. Glad to see them. It does talk about populated area. I'm very sensitive to that because number one, what is a populated area? Number two, are we saying that a town or a city or a municipality has to meet a certain threshold before they're worthy of getting a tornado emergency? Are Chance and I going to have to be the ones standing up in front of the cameras explaining to the town of Hickory, Oklahoma, that because they only have 72 people, we knew there was a violent tornado coming that was going to completely envelop the town, but they weren't quite big enough for us to issue a tornado emergency. So you just got the other kind of tornado warning. To me, population should not be a factor. Now, do you issue a tornado emergency out on the eastern plains of Colorado where there's not any towns? You know, I'm not saying there's no such thing as unpopulated areas out there somewhere. There's not in any of our areas, I don't think. You know, we've got some desolate areas in western part of our CWA and maybe Chance scattered parts of yours. But, you know, the last tornado emergency we issued was for two little towns. I think one population was 600 and something and one was in the double digits. I mean, we didn't look it up. We didn't care. I mean, we had a little debate in the office about it because we had never done that before, but that's my opinion.
Well, if you live away from a city, is your life any less important?
Yes.
This whole thing is just insane. And maybe I'm sensitive because I come from a small town in South Alabama. But if you live in a city, we'll be live, local, late breaking. We're on the air with wall-to-wall coverage. The minute for some of these TV stations gets out of the urban area, the metro, they go back to Freak of the Week or, you know, whatever's on television. And I hate that. Every single life is precious to me. It's important. And we all have to approach it from that means here. But I'm looking at the clock and we're almost up to the time here, guys. And this could be a whole show here. But Ryan, if you could go back and let me just say this about Ryan, this guy's good. And I'm not just blowing sunshine up your skirt here. You are good. You understand the people, you understand the geography, you understand the culture of your market like nobody else. And you do a masterful job when you're up there. And it's hard. People think it's easy doing a green wall tornado coverage. It ain't easy. And you're masterful at what you do. But if you could go back to Friday and change anything, what would you have changed about your coverage?
I think two things. There was a time, but you know, I know what I know now because so it's muddying up my thoughts right now. Because part of me, I said something at one time. I said on a scale of 1 to 10 on how serious this is, guys, I'm sitting at about an 8 right now. And I said that, but almost as fast as I was saying it, I was thinking, but this isn't the environment for this. This isn't doing right. This isn't. So I probably wouldn't have said that because I don't think it actually matched up with what my brain was thinking. The other thing I would do is I kind of feel like I threw the Weather Service under the bus near the end because I begged for a severe thunderstorm warning for one of our counties. And that was partially because, you know, some of my area, I live up here in Greene County, was getting baseball-sized hail, and we didn't have a severe thunderstorm warning. We had nothing. And they were focusing on the tornado warning. I was like, we need a warning right here. Right, this is where we need it. And I don't ever like to throw anybody in the weather enterprise under the bus on that. So I wish I had just gone over this chat service and like, please, let's get this going. So in hindsight, I apologize, Weather Service Memphis, on that. I love all of them down there. But I think in the moment when we're getting all these videos of just like hail pounding everything, you know, but that's the two things I would change. You know, it's hard to answer that question on this end of knowing what we know now. But I think I would have listened to my inner thoughts that were saying something may not be what it looks like here.
Yeah.
I think I used to watch this guy, James Spann, and
Yeah,
to learn every single road.
The easiest thing to do for some of these jabronis is to do Monday morning quarterback. Oh man, it's easy to do it now. If you look at everything that happened, you know what happened, you know what was right, what was wrong. In the heat of the battle, it's hard. You don't know how hard that is. It's really tough. But real quick, for everybody on the show here, and I know that Chance wants to go to impact warnings, which is cool. I think that's a great idea because that's all that matters is impact. But the system now, and I wish Kim was here because it's kind of a social science question, is the tornado emergency thing taking away from an old tornado warning? Are people just, it's a regular tornado warning. It's not an emergency. It's not a big deal. So for everybody on the show here, does the tornado emergency thing, is it helping, hurting? Does it need to go away? Just some final thoughts on it. So Troy, let's start with you. I can tell the wheels are spinning. Go.
I don't know that I want to look at, I feel differently, honestly, about it than I felt about it this time last week, because I kind of watched Ryan on Friday night and watched what happened and trying to understand it too. And again, I wasn't as sharp as Ryan, but I was sitting there going, there's something not right about this. I can't quite put my finger on what it was, but what I've heard a lot of in the last couple of days in all this discussion is, aren't all tornadoes an emergency? I've heard that more than from just a few people. They've asked me that in the last, and that's why I asked Chance and Rick about that just now. And because that question is going to have to be answered. It may not be an easy one to answer, but that's going to have to be answered.
All right, Jen, what are your thoughts?
I still think there's a lot to clear up between the PDS warning and tornado emergency. I'm still unclear what the total difference is there, because either one of those to me is slightly more heightened.
Well, let's stop there and let's ask Rick and Chance. I agree. What is the difference between a PDS tornado warning and a tornado emergency?
In my mind, the difference is the tornado emergency is going to get a lot more attention from the broadcasters especially. So if we say tornado emergency, the desired effect that we want to see is, oh crap, they don't do this very often. It must be really bad.
But Rick, I don't think that's what James is asking. I mean, what is meteorologically the difference?
Meteorologically, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I can't point to anything and say, well,
okay,
this tornado looks like this, or it's in this location, or it's doing this, or the rotational velocity is that, then it's one or the other. They're both, to me, they're pretty interchangeable. It's just that final step of shaking people and saying, this is as bad as it gets, kind of thing.
I would agree. Yeah, I would agree, Rick. And going back to what Troy was saying earlier, I mean, we're still issuing tornado warnings for land spouts. That right there could be an explanation of every one of them not, quote unquote, being an emergency. Because generally the land spout, only in a rare case may it cause, significant number of injuries or fatalities. Just, it's very rare. So I think that could be one of the arguments there. But once you start to get into the considerable and catastrophic, it's very difficult to discern, and each situation is going to be completely different. And you have to just tackle each one of those with all the tools that we have in our arsenal locally and with our partners out there sharing. I mean, that's where NWS Chat behind the scenes, I think, is a wonderful tool, because it gives all of us the ability to discuss the situation and make a determination which direction we can go.
Well, I guess I'm concerned too we got the PDS, we got the tornado, now we got the different tags, and then people have been here long enough know this, and I don't want to drag. I'm like Ryan. I don't want to drag a weather service office under the bus, but I've got Memphis where they have rewritten the third asterisk of their tornado warnings to eliminate the word capable of, where it normally says thunderstorms are capable of producing a tornado. Memphis hasn't since 2006. They removed the words capable of. So if you look at their warnings, it says thunderstorm producing a tornado is near Tupelo on every warning. And by the way, that includes radar indicated. I'm confused by that. And this is where we got in the discussion, where we had the discussion, I think James last week or Bill, we had discussion about Tulsa rewriting a little bit of their one of their templates in WarnGen for a severe thunderstorm. I kind of liked what they had done, but folks, when you're issuing, Ryan, I mean, you're there, and I love the people in Memphis. I have friends that have been working there before, but when you see a warning that says a severe thunderstorm producing a tornado is near Tupelo, I'm looking for a LSR. I'm looking for a storm report, which tells me where that tornado is. And I look at the bottom of it. This is radar indicated. Mm-hmm. And how many, by the way, if it's radar indicated, one other point, if it's radar indicated, what's that primarily? Rick, please, and Chance, correct me. But if it's radar indicated, probably in that basic sense, you're seeing some form of rotation in velocity data. Well, mesocyclone, I mean, let's go back to Met 101 here. Mesocyclones produce tornadoes how often? Less than 20% of the time is what the latest stuff that I see is. And if you're telling me that every radar indicated circulation is a tornado, I don't know if this, I don't understand what Memphis is doing there. And that confuses this issue even more without picking Memphis out. I'm kind of lost.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, Troy. We crawl that at the bottom of our screen. So this isn't just something that's, behind the scenes, and then we ingest that and put it there. It's crawling on our screen. So yeah, I agree that might need to be looked at. And they're going through some management changes now. And
yeah.
It may be something that they look at also. But you're right. We have so many levels now. You got radar indicated, you got radar confirmed, you've got, all kinds of different levels. I'm really getting excited about the idea of going impact-based warnings.
Yeah, Chance has got, I agree. I love what Chance is talking about.
Of course, let me throw in another thing. That's a whole other topic for another show. It's the number of false alarms, the FAR. It's, in my opinion, it's out of control. And again, I'm not calling out anybody, but I'm just saying there's some weather service offices that go into the carpet bombing mode. I mean, warning, and maybe one out of 20 will verify. In my opinion, you just can't do that. I will tell you, there is a tangible feel to that. I can feel it. You've been here long enough. You know it. You go into a Dollar General, go into a Walmart, go into a Target and talk with people. We got a problem with this. And it's just that on top of everything else, we need to look at all this. But again, we got to hurry. Bruce Jones, let me let you unmute and your thoughts on the tornado emergency and this whole thing we're talking about, because you've been in this for a long time.
Well, yeah, it certainly gets your attention. I always assumed it was a kind of a verification that something was truly on the ground, because as we pointed out, you get a lot of tornado warnings that just based on radar indicated rotation. That's far from assurance that there truly is something on the ground. So I've always assumed that the tornado emergency was kind of the stamp of approval that yes, there is indeed a tornado on the ground, and it seems to be a mature tornado capable of doing some maybe higher level than normal damage. So I don't know. I found them useful, but I will agree that every tornado is dangerous to the same extent. If it just hits one little mobile home, you could have fatalities right there, and even if it's an F0, F1.
All right. So Rick Smith, your kind of final thoughts on this whole topic.
Well, the whole reason there is the words tornado emergency put together like that is my former boss, Dave Vandera, May 3rd, 99, was watching this thing coming up the turnpike into the Oklahoma City Metro and thinking, we got to do something to tell people this is different. This is not, there's been 50 tornado warnings today. This is the one, if you've never paid attention to one, this is one you need to. And so he just picked out, this was not written down. He just picked the two words out of his head and typed them down in the severe weather statement, and it went out. And it had the desired purpose. It had people, media, a lot of people are going, oh my God, we knew it was bad when they said that, because I've never seen that before. That's the value of the tornado emergency. And it's, a lot of ways it's gone now because we've seen it hundreds of times. I mean, I'm actually doing a presentation on this for our staff meeting tomorrow. We kind of always like to learn from other events and try to, imagine, how we can improve things on our end. And so I've been looking at some of the stats, and there's been so many of them. To me, a lot of the big value of the tornado emergency is when somebody like Ryan gets a hold of it and they pass that on to the public. Somebody hearing tornado emergency on the weather radio or seeing it on an app is not what we're looking for. If I put out something in chat saying we're putting tornado emergency in, that's for the media to say, hey, here we go. And that's how people are getting their warnings information. So to me, you don't really need a tornado emergency to do that. Chat is so much more prevalent. Well, we hope it's more used and being more used now, NWS chat. You could put the same information in there and get it to the media and get that word out. I'm not saying we get rid of tornado emergency, but things are different now than in 1999 when those two words got mashed together in that situation.
All right, Chance, your final thoughts on this subject.
I agree wholeheartedly with Rick. We realize that the media is the mass disseminator of weather information. And the key is for you all to get that information and to share it with the millions of people that you all are serving throughout your broadcast. That's the key for us. And we want you all to understand that we're recognizing this one has significant potential, and we want you to relay that information on to your viewers. And I agree. I think we really need to look at the false alarm issue. We spoke about this in depth many, many years ago. And I don't know. It has changed. It has improved, but it is still there.
Bill Murray, your thoughts on this whole situation?
I think there are too many of them, James. I think they still have import in the right situation. The pick that Rick is going to share tonight, I think, is very telling, because I went back and looked through a lot of those, and some of them just weren't emergencies. Didn't turn out to be. I'm not faulting the offices that issued them at the time, but there are a lot of them, and now I think we've weakened the power of that. We had a flash flood emergency here in October of last year. The Weather Service in Birmingham upgraded that warning to emergency wording, and it was an emergency. I was standing in the middle of it.
Yep.
Trying to keep my house from floating down the hill. Literally watching, a landslide of mud and gravel and water and everything else, and trying to steer it, down the driveway instead of through my house. And it was, that was a critical situation. And, there I thought it was, I don't know if it had any import, if the flash flood emergency gets the same attention as a tornado emergency, but there it was justified. So.
Well, again, I just think that we're, at this fork in the road in the whole warning process. And I don't want to see this thing going down the tubes. And I'm not saying that it will, but with the thing that happened Friday night and so many false alarms and maybe some confusion creeping in where people are not, it's not a tornado emergency, I'm not going to do anything. These jabbermouths, these bags of hot air, they're yakking away and they're always trying to scare people. And you hear that a lot. And I just think we need to look at all this in a logical, intelligent way. And that's why I wish Kim was on the show, but we need to come back and talk about this again. But we are really out of time. This might be the longest Weather Brains in the history of Weather Brains. So look, we got to do picks of the week here real quick before we hang up on everybody. So I actually wrote a little essay on this whole thing, and so on Substack, and that's my pick of the week. And a lot of what I think is in that little piece, and all the links will be up on weatherbrains.com. All right, let's do them quick. Jen, what you got?
We got an email from Wyatt Crabtree Scott a few weeks ago talking about the Portland, Vancouver tornado from 1972, a tornado I would like to research more, and sent me a couple of links. Thank you so much for sending that. My pick of the week is the National Weather Service weather assessment from that event.
Awesome. All right, Troy, what you got?
Jen's going to just, I think, probably bury her head there on the counter with this, but it was 52 years ago tomorrow at 12:55 in the afternoon that the EF4 tornado moved through Alcorn County, Mississippi, over in Corinth, Mississippi. And I was in the 7th grade when that happened. Jen and I've talked about that, and we lost a number of people in Corinth that day, a few people. I think the death toll was 4 or 5, but that was the one that kind of drove me to where I am nowadays, for good or for bad. So kind of want to talk about history for a second. My pick of the week is another Daryl Hertzman production here. And again, it's kind of difficult. I'm told it's really not public. I've kind of dug around this today to get to what James was talking about on the false alarm ratio and all that kind of thing. National Weather Service, I think, does a good job of looking at that, but I'm told it's really not public information per office. That's what I understand. And Daryl has the CAL, that's what he calls it, up at the Iowa Environmental Mesonet, that'll allow you to put a date in if you want to look at tornado warnings, and it'll estimate the false alarm ratio, the critical success index, the probability of detection. Again, I would caution you on this. And Daryl, I talked to Daryl this afternoon. Just keep in mind, it's just a computer doing it. I think the Weather Service does a better job with this. They can help refine a little better, but you can look up those yourself. And that's on the IM Cal, and that's the link. And it's my pick of the week.
Awesome. All right. Let's see here. Ryan, I see you put yours in the chat room. Ryan, what you got for us this week?
One is the cooperative observations. Our viewers love this. If we have something that, someone will call up and say, oh, my grandma in October of 1911, there was something. You can pull up some of the climate logs from 1911 and put them on there, and they're handwritten. And for us in Jonesboro, the nuns that are about a mile down the street from KAIT, the Benedictine Sisters of St. Bernard's kept the logs forever. So they have that signature down at the bottom. And so anytime there's a weather event, I'll show the handwritten log. So you can pull that from any state, any city, and some of them go back into the 1800s.
Awesome. That's a great pick. That's good stuff. Thanks, Ryan. Okay, Bruce, what you got for us this week?
National Weather Service website on that Cookeville tornado outbreak. I just posted the little link there. I really enjoy reading those and seeing the damage photos, and it tells a story of a nocturnal tornado outbreak that did quite a bit of damage there. A truly historic outbreak.
Awesome. And again, all these links will be up on weatherbrains.com. Rick, what's your pick of the week for us?
Well, Daryl Hertzman gets a lot of name mentions on here, and rightfully so. Mine is he's put together a listing of every flash flood emergency and tornado emergency. It's a tabular listing, so you can click the table, make it sortable, and find it by office, by date, by year. Some really interesting stats. One of the interesting stats there throughout the history of tornado emergencies, there's been 14 tornado emergencies where there wasn't a tornado at all. So this thing last Friday is certainly not the first time that's happened, but just interesting stats, and you can sort it, you can copy it into a spreadsheet and do all kinds of stuff with it. But great stuff as usual from Daryl.
Yeah, Daryl's a rock star. That is great stuff. All right, Chance, what kind of pick of the week do you have for us? I know it's going to be good.
Well, I don't know that I have an actual link, to be quite honest with you, so I'm scouring my brain. But I think I want to go back to what Bruce said earlier. We need to ensure that folks have multiple ways to get information so that they can stay safe. And one of those has to be a geolocation so that they know to keep their current location out of the red. It's just imperative, because we have to realize systems will fail, and we have to have backup measures in place. So that's what I have.
Yep. And that is a great point. All right, Bill Murray, go.
Yeah, James, I'm going to take the foghorn just so I can hear the dulcet tones of the foghorn. But every week I've been talking about Tim Vasquez and stuff he does. I love all of his books, obviously. And I just got hold of a copy of Digital Atmosphere, and I can't wait to have some time to just play with that. But Tim's Meteorology Lab, his show he does on YouTube every week, 8 o'clock, or every night during the week at 8 o'clock Central Time, is just spectacular for learning. I don't have a guest for next week because our guest cannot be with us next Monday night. So I'll be filling that position, but we've got a lot of other great guests coming up in the coming weeks. Ryan Hall, y'all. Jen, you want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah, we've had numerous requests for him, and I think it's going to be a very interesting show to talk to someone who has a different platform from a social media point of view. And a lot of my Tornado Talk guys are going to help me formulate some questions so we can have some lively conversations on what he does on YouTube and some of his coverage. I think it'll be very interesting to talk to him.
That's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you for setting that up, Jim. But that's James. That's some of the stuff's coming up on WeatherBrains here in the next couple of weeks. I want to thank Chance for being here tonight. That was just outstanding. Love getting you on here. I want to thank Steve Holmes for pointing out that we needed to have you on. And I want to make sure that we talk about James Lewis's email. James mentioned this week that, they're going to be studying which hurricane names to, retire this year. And do you know, James Spann, which letter has had the most names retired in the Atlantic?
C. Nope.
I. And I thought that was interesting. Do you know what letter that we use for names? Because obviously we don't use some of them like X and U and things like that, which has never had, there's only one letter that's never had a name retired. Which one is it?
P. I'm just guessing.
V.
Which one?
No.
He went bye-bye.
No.
What?
Bill.
Hello?
Bill, you can't leave us hanging like this.
V.
Goodness, my AirPods just died right then. We know we've had the longest WeatherBrains ever when
Wow.
So yeah, the letter V as in Victor has never been retired.
Wow. Okay.
By my research. So now that'll happen this year. When we get a storm bad enough to retire at V, we'll know that we've really had some problems. But I thought that was an interesting email, and since we didn't have an email segment tonight, I wanted to point that out.
Yeah, we'll do a long email segment next week. And by the way, the working show title for this show is Joint Class. Which, we got to go, but Ryan and Chance, thank you all.
Thank
this
you,
was
Ryan.
a great show, and we just needed to keep going, but we've got to cut things off here. And the deal is this: if you're new, we record every Monday night. We're typically on at 8 Eastern, 7 Central. Many people watch live.bigbrainsmedia.com. We know most of you listen. All the show notes will be up on the website, weatherbrains.com. Our email address is email@weatherbrains.com. So on behalf of the entire WeatherBrains crew, I'm James Spann. Thanks for listening. Have a great week, and God bless.
Go Royals, Chance.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
everybody. This was a great show.
It was
Ryan
awesome.
and Chance, thank you.
Thanks, Chance.
Thank you.
Oh, like I said, thank you all for giving me the opportunity. Sorry, I was just a little bit long-winded. So
No, you weren't. You were perfect.
You
Perfect.
Perfect.
I do appreciate the opportunity, and good meeting everybody, and James, seeing you again, and Rick as well, and Bill. So thank you all, and glad I got to meet you, Jen. I don't have to, now I can put a face with the voice.
Exactly.
There you go.
Thank you.